Okay, good morning. Good morning, all. Okay, well, welcome to our February 16th General Finance Committee meeting of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. I'm going to call this meeting to order at exactly 9 a.m. I'm going to confirm that all members are present. We have quorum. Okay, good. I'm going to verbally confirm the CAO, clerk, and members of the senior management team and staff are present here today. I will also advise that public input on the agenda was invited at the following email, TML, public comment at muskokalakes.ca. We did receive correspondence and circulated to council yesterday from Mr. Gordon R. Baker, Darius Knight, Gordon W. Rutledge, Rob Ashley, and Nancy Weatherhill, re item 10C, Torrance Ball Diamond. The public notice I'm about to read is today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I would acknowledge that we do have a supplementary agenda today. And a supplementary agenda was issued yesterday to add the following item 4. And you'll see this as a public record, invited delegations. Asia, John, and John from Sierra Consultants are to attend this morning regarding Recreation, Parks, Trails, and Facilities Master Plan. Item 5B, they are our consultant, thank you. And item 10, under new business, notice of motion moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Hayes, read Torrance Ballfield. We have an incidental motion and a motion, and we'll be dealing with that under item new business, item 10C. So Councillor Nishikawa, I see you have your hand up. I think if, as I just indicated, everything's fine, and we would deal with it there. You're not happy with that. So I guess I'll let you go ahead, but that was how we were going to deal with this. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, at this time, I would like to remove item 10C from the agenda, as there's a supplementary item that will replace that.
Okay.
As advised by the clerk.
Yeah, the clerk's right here. So council, that's fine. And Councillor Hayes, you'd be in support of that as your second in the motion. Thank you. Okay, fine. Good. Thank you. That's taken care of. Appreciate it. Okay, so motions today have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. Under voting, your members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not considered a recorded vote. That's that. Councillor Mazan, you had your hand up. No, you're good. Thank you. Okay, good. So then it's just prior to calling on our first delegations, I just wanted to make, and this is very informal, but I did want to acknowledge that in your mail this week, you'll find your much awaited tax bill for the first half of the year. And I wanted to draw attention to what was included in the package, and that is some really relevant information. This is, again, more of a public service announcement, but there is information in your envelope which is really viable. We've already had a few questions about voting, about the election, the municipal election across Ontario this fall. So I wanted to draw attention to that. And also the mayor's message. I must say, I do take the time to read it. And I found this a particularly good read. Not that it's a report card, but certainly for those, we get a lot of calls, councillors, how is the township doing? What about this? What about that? I think if you read that, it's time well spent, and it's a really good indication of where this corporation is going and where you and your shareholders stand. So I appreciate the messaging in that as it relates to that. Item 4A is Mr. Greg Knight to attend regarding the Muskoka Road 169 traffic speed as it's referred to in the document. I would just preface Mr. Knight, who is a property owner and business owner in the intersection of Torrance, Southwood Road, Torrance Road, East Bay Road. And he has some comments to make as it relates to an item, which is a resolution, item 10D, regarding a resolution on District Muskoka Road 169. So Mr. Knight, you go right ahead. Sir, you have the floor. Morning, Greg. Greg, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I just got in now. Did you call for me to?
Sorry, go ahead. You have the floor.
All right, thank you very much. My apologies. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Greg Knight, 1006 Clear Lake Road in Torrance, Ontario, POC 1M0. Many of you will know me. I've been a year-round resident and business owner here for many years. Hard to believe, 15 years ago last week, we took over ownership of the Clear Lake Resort. What we're here for today is a very, very simple request, probably the simplest on your agenda today, and that's for the district to do a review of traffic in our area. There was a study conducted back in 2012. Staff may provide some more information on that. There was a recommendation to reduce speed limits on 169 through Torrance at that time. For whatever reason, the Township Council of the day didn't support it. It's 10 years later. We're simply asking, a very prudent request, innocuous request to revisit that and do another review. The area that I've affectionately renamed Downtown Torrance is a designated community within your official plan. The boundary of that community was expanded during the last official plan review process. And you know what? Congratulations, the objectives are being met. The community of Torrance has experienced a renaissance in recent years. Off-water economic development is happening. In 2012, my business had 1 full-time employee. Today, we've got 15 full-time year-round employees, and we swell to 70 in the summer. Building permits in this area have been issued for millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in construction since 2012. Our nearby parks that use these roads, the Barrens and Hardy Lake, have seen unprecedented growth in visitors. The YMCA camp at the end of our road has constructed many more buildings. They operate much more year-round now. And in fact, for the 10 Saturdays in the summer, the Y now sends teenage camp counselors out on our local roads to help calm traffic during peak traffic times. That's not really the way we're supposed to conduct traffic in the township. We see considerable traffic up and down Torrance Road. 10 years ago, I used to push a stroller across the road to Al and Jill's General Store. Now my 10-year-old runs over there with a dozen of her friends and fills her pocket with secret stashes of candy. That's a trend that we see all over the place here now. I'm thrilled to say that my friend and neighbor Dave Kitchen is going to breathe some serious life into the general store property across the street. He will speak to that in a minute, but that'll further enhance the kind of dynamic community your official plan talks about. Frankly, I don't really want to belabor the point any further. It's a really simple request. I thank Chair Zavitz and Commissioner Becking for preparing the report that went out, and we would appreciate your support in asking the district to review traffic here.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. And just, David, if I might, just prior to giving you the floor, I, Chair, and apologize to all, I've neglected to item 3, which is asking if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Again, I apologize, committee. If there are any, I would ask at this time. If there are, I'm seeing none. And again, sincere apologies. Okay, Mr. David Kitchen of Field of Greens and Torrance Store. I'm going to let you have the floor, sir. Welcome. David, you're muted.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So my name is David Kitchen. I own Field of Greens and the Torrance General Store. And I'm here with Greg to simply request that a traffic study be initiated along the Torrance corridor. in support of our businesses and overall safety of our guests and visitors and residents. My history in Muskoka began in 1980 as a summer student working at the Allport Marina. Then we purchased a family cottage in East Bay in 87. In 2017, I purchased Field of Greens. In 2022, I purchased the Torrance General Store. I'm proud to employ one full-time year-round employee and over 30 seasonal workers. And I've enjoyed really enhancing and developing and growing my participation in the local economic and community fabric over the last 35 years. As Greg said, Torrance is becoming a very important off-water development node. I'm excited to be part of the transformation. It's also, as you are all aware of, the terminus for a very large geographic area now: Southwood Road, East Bay, Hardy Lake, Barrens, the camps, cottagers, local workers, and so on. But I think my most important point to try and communicate to you today is that my business at the Torrance General Store, I'm anticipating, first of all, my business is a very high transactional business. It's so there'll be a lot of customers coming through. I'm expecting anywhere from 200 to 500 transactions a day. So that could mean 200 vehicles, it could mean 300 vehicles, it could mean pedestrians, it could mean cyclists, motorcyclists, etc. That, I guess, in a nutshell, and from my perspective, is a significant number, coupled with the capacity limits, so to speak, I guess, at Greg's businesses. There's going to be a lot of vehicle traffic through that area, and a lot of pedestrian traffic, I'm assuming, attempting to cross the road. So I guess, one area, obviously, is that's going to change our collective risk profile dramatically in terms of potential incidents. And those are the main points I wanted to just put forth today. And I thank you for the opportunity to do so. And that concludes my remarks.
Good, thank you, sir. Okay, so we won't actually have a Q&A piece. We'll be dealing with this under item 10D. Welcome you guys to hang about. I do appreciate your time, and certainly a very viable topic that we need to look at. I just wanted to point out to a committee and to the public that under 10D, there's a motion, and there's also a report reference. And if you click on that, you'll see a report, which is the 2012 PW-10-2012-1 district study that was done. And I suppose what we're really looking for is that, again, Mayor Harding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, do we want to maybe just jump ahead to that while these delegates are here, try and tick that off the agenda, and sort of top of mind for everybody right now, and then they can get on with their day? Just a question.
Yeah, well, we have a pository to that. We can do that, actually. And thank you for bringing that forward. I guess, given that, I suppose then I may just ask committee while we get our paper in order. Is there any comment, any questions, general statements needing to be made here?
Item 10B, just
Item what, sorry? Yeah, sorry, under item 10D. Okay, Councilor Hayes, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you. I was just noticing that the 2012 request, if we just repeat the 2012 request, we should be zeroing in on the new insight with the success of Mr. Knight's business and the anticipated success of Dave's, to make sure that they realize that the traffic at that area is going to increase. The 2012 resulted in the amber flashing light, which does help a little bit, but you come over that hill and everything's just right in front of you, including the intersection. So those of us that are slowing down for it, it's good. Those of us that are not, it's not so good. Those of us that are unaware of what's happening when you go over that hill, we've had a few near misses, and we continue to have near misses until we slow down the traffic.
Good, thank you very much for that. And of course, given the in the body of our agenda today. I do have a motion here to read. And thank you very much, Councillor Hayes, because of course, those items are dialogued here, referenced here, and will be certainly part of that request for study. And that is purely what we're asking for today, is that the district engage a study for this spring, summer, fall wind supposes. So I'm not seeing any other hands, any other queries. So if I might, I'm going to proceed with the reading of this motion, which is moved by Councillor Kelly and seconded by Councillor Mazan. Whereas District of Muskoka Road, DM Road 169 is at times the busiest road in the Township of Muskoka Lakes. And whereas the road is used frequently by pedestrians between Bala and Torrance, and especially in the vicinity of the Torrance community. And whereas a district's traffic study PW-10-2012-1 was completed in 2012, recommending that the posted speed limit be reduced from 80 to 60 kilometers per hour. And whereas the recommended change in the speed limit was not implemented. And whereas considerable commercial development has taken place in the vicinity of the intersection of DM Road 169 and Torrance Road since the last traffic study, with further development is projected to occur. And whereas the current speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour is inconsistent with the projected level of pedestrian activity and represents a significant safety hazard. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Muskoka Lakes requests the District Municipality of Muskoka to conduct a speed limit analysis on Muskoka Road 169 between the end of the 60 kilometer per hour speed zone south of the Bala community and the east intersection with Torrance Road, with consideration being given to extend the 60 kilometer speed limit zone to the east of the above noted intersection. And that the analysis include an operational review of the westerly intersection of District Road 169 with Torrance Road, Southwood Road, DM Road 13 to determine the warrants for enhanced traffic control measures at this location. So I would call the question. All those in favor? I'm sorry, Mayor Harding and Councilor Mazan. Sorry, Mayor Harding, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I'm certainly in support of doing some additional analysis and study. The one quick question I ask is their opening statement in this resolution, and I'm always concerned about overstating things. It seems that we have a little bit of color added that at times is the busiest road. Is that a quantifiable statement?
I would direct, thank you for that, and I would direct to Director Becking. Ken, if you'd be so kind as to speak to that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 169, like many of the other roads in the township, is seasonally affected by the influx of residents or seasonal residents and visitors during the summer months. The opening statement is an acknowledgement of that fact. I don't think that anything necessarily turns on any superlatives in the statement, but it acknowledges the fact that there is a seasonality to the volumes of traffic on the roadway.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mayor, your hand is up.
Sorry, I guess we're lowering our hands today. Oftentimes the clerk's department's been lowering the hands, but I will lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will call the question. All those in favor? Oh,
Hold on, I'm getting some freezing. Can you just ask them to keep them up?
Oh, I wonder if you could all if you could put your hand up. We've got some freezing technical problem here. Everyone's frozen.
Okay, and call opposed just so I can see.
Okay. I didn't see anything.
I didn't see anything, but just in case.
Okay, so all those opposed? They're not hearing me. Okay,
I see no opposed.
We can hear you, Councillor Zavitz.
you can hear us.
It was unanimous. 4.
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have completely frozen.
Well, I'm okay.
I can see Councillor Kelly. That's it. I don't know what that means. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. So you can all hear me. Hopefully we'll get back in that groove. Greg and David, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming forward. Have a great day, and we'll be seeing you again soon, I hope. Thank you for that. Item 4C, I'm going to be calling on Michael Cullip and Tom Rennie to attend regarding the Ferndale Road realignment. There's a presentation that these gentlemen have. Would we get that up on the screen? Please, welcome. You're here. Michael, Tom, who have we got here? Okay, I see Michael's on his name.
Yes, I am here. Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay, so who's going to be making the presentation? Michael, is it you?
I will take all the glory for that, absolutely. And then Tom Rennie from the golf course is also in attendance should there be any comments or questions.
Excellent, go right ahead.
If we've just got, I think that's not the correct slideshow there. We should have one.
Oh, no, we're looking for the realignment of Ferndale Road. Now, I might
That's
mention
the one
while we just get this organized, there is no actual agenda item on this other than, save your delegation. So I will allow some dialogue, some discussion immediately after your delegation, just so we can deal with the matter.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're just going to get your first page up. Things seem a little lethargic this morning electronically.
I'm having Adobe issue this morning.
We're having issues this morning. You think you're going to be able to get it? Okay, just bear with us for a moment, please. Thank you. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Councillor Bridgman, you're waving your hand.
I am Chair Zavitz. This looked to me like just a presentation. You may recall that anything to do with the golf club, I removed myself because I am a member of the golf club. I think you just intimated that you're going to see if there's an ask in this presentation. So I reserve the right to say that I have a conflict of interest. I didn't think I had one in the beginning, but I may going forward.
Yeah, and I certainly understand, and we'll work with you on that. As it relates to, ongoing dialogue, while this is not an agenda item, except for it as a delegation, there may well be an ask at the end, and I do believe we would want a little bit of fulsome discussion on that, at least to help frame this thing up. So I'll leave that to your discretion. That's your call. Thank you. Okay, Michael, it looks like we are ready for you now. We appreciate your patience, and I suppose he's ready to go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So my name is Michael Cullip from Tatham Engineering, and we are here on behalf of the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club to discuss the potential realignment of Ferndale Road. Next slide, please. So just a brief agenda. We'll talk briefly about the history of the club and the existing conditions, recognizing that perhaps not everybody is a golfer. What it is that we wish to achieve on behalf of the club, looking at the next steps, and then as you said, sir, any comments or questions perhaps on the next. So the history of the golf club itself dates back to 1920 when it was initially formed. At that point, they retained Stanley Thompson, who has since become a Canadian Golf Hall of Fame architect. So there is certainly some significance in history to the design of the course. He's been involved in a number of significant courses throughout Canada and is somewhat of a famous person, if you will, from a golf architecture perspective and certainly from a Canadian perspective. And so the golf course itself was constructed over the period from 1920 to 1922. And the next slide illustrates the official opening back in August of 1922. So the next slide would just kind of show the present day. So come August of this year, the club would be 100 years in operation. So certainly it's been a significant contributor to the golf course scene in the area for 100 years. And the next. So when we look at the existing conditions, Ferndale Road, which is the district road through to the end of the golf course, certainly bisects the golf course itself. And there are many golf courses within the area and within the province and the country, no doubt, where roads go through them. And many of those, the golf course is on one side of the road or the other. There are holes in play that are alongside the road, and even instances where golfers are required to cross the road to get from one side to the other. But as illustrated in the next slide, Ferndale Road in this case not only bisects the golf course property, but in fact bisects a number of the active holes. And the aerial on the next slide will kind of give you a better indication and picture of that. So there are a significant number of holes within the course that cross from one side of the road to the other, and hence require play from one side of the other. It's not simply a matter of let's cross so that we can play golf on the east side or the west side of the road, but golfers are required to play across the road and cross on multiple occasions. So I thought it would be appropriate just to take a quick little tour via Google Street View. So if we can proceed to the next slide. We'll start at the east end of the course, and you can see there is warning signs with respect to entering the golf area. And as we proceed through the slides, you can just get appreciation for the course. It is a posted 40, recognizing that we want motorists to travel slower and be aware of their surroundings, but you can see the golf course lands on either side. It's certainly not a significant amount of protection, if any, as it relates to motorists. And then the next slide continues on. And you can see many opportunities for golf cart crossings and paths, and those are strewn across the road bisection through the golf course property. And then the next slide kind of illustrates that while the road was initially constructed, I believe it predates the golf course in 1920, dating back to 1912. Certainly times have changed over the past 100 years with respect to the advent of the automobile. I think in 1912, the occurrence of an automobile on the road was probably very scarce. And here we are, you can see in this picture that there are 3 of them. So there are a significant number of vehicles using the road and others using the road as well. And on the right-hand side, you can actually see there is a golf cart and there are some active golfers. And then the next slide would just take us out of the golf course and back into the public realm, if you will, with the onset or the introduction of the forest there. So the conclusion of the golf course itself. So the next slide speaks to what the objectives of the golf course are. And in essence, they want to address the fact that Ferndale Road bisects the golf course. As I said, it's not just a road that passes through the property, but rather it crosses 6 out of the 18 holes, requiring active play across the hole. So it introduces a safety hazard, obviously, to the golfers and to the motorists and any other road users. So there are pedestrians along the road, there are cyclists and joggers, and certainly as active transportation becomes more to the forefront and as development in the area continues to increase, we expect that the utilization of that road for other means other than the private automobile will become more and more significant. So certainly a safety hazard as golf balls are required to travel from one side to the other. And obviously that safety hazard introduces a liability to not only the golf course, but also the district, recognizing that it's a district road. And while I'm not a lawyer, I would suspect that if there were any legal issues or lawsuits, that the possibility would be that the township would also be brought into that, recognizing the location of the golf course within the township.
Okay, Michael, so you're in your 5-minute slot, you're just right there. So I'll ask you to wrap up, or unless Tom's going to take it the rest of the way. So I'll let you sort of summarize.
Perfectly. So what we want, and perhaps we can just go to the next slide then. What we want to do is undertake a process that the golf course would look at options to improving that road system and recognizing that this would be subject to the Class EA process. So there'd be a number of stages in which we would proceed. There'd be a number of stages for public input and consultation, and that would include consultation from the municipality as well. And then recognizing that the Ministry of Natural Resources would also be involved. So perhaps we can go to the next few slides, and I'll just skip through these rather quickly. Looking at alternative solutions, can we bisect or can we maintain that bisection? Can we reconfigure the golf course? Can we reconfigure the road? And certainly at this time, the preferred option from the golf course for various reasons is to reconfigure the road, which is illustrated in the following slide. So there are a number of different options that we would explore and be subject to a further study. And then the next slide kind of gives you an idea as to how that road would be configured. And then the last slide, I believe it is, really just gets us to where we are now and the next step. So again, this is an initiative that would be wholly undertaken by the golf course at their cost. Any improvements that would stem out of the study would be at their cost as well. But prior to proceeding with any of this study, we are looking for support from the district and also from the township. So we're presenting the same to the district next month. And in fact, the district has asked for confirmation that the township would support this study being undertaken prior to them giving consideration for it. So again, what the golf course is looking to achieve is options, a study to investigate the potential realignment of the road as they see that as being the most viable. What are those potential solutions and how would those impact the surrounding lands, and proceed through a class environmental assessment study that would deal with the development and evaluation of these alternative solutions. And as part of that, seek public input. And that would, of course, include the municipality and the district as contributing stakeholders as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Given your presentation, it was good and you got through it. Thank you for that. Now, I am going to, I just, because of the topic and because of its weight here in this fine township, I'm going to, it looks like I'm going to allow a few comments, and then we're going to try to figure out where we go with this or how we deal with this as a committee going forward. So I'm going to let Councillor Kelly go ahead. You have a comment?
Thank you, and through you, and thank you for the presentation. I'm a little unclear. I think at the end there was a suggestion, or at least I can see in the report, there's the notion that you're heading off to district next month. But you said something that the district was looking for some confirmation that the township was comfortable with this study. And I'll just leave that as it may. I don't know that we're being asked for that at this point in time, but I'll just leave that one alone. And I realize that if this moves anywhere, it's going to have to move back here at some point. And having read the presentation and listened to it again, there's several issues that I don't expect you to be able to answer today, and I don't expect that at all. But I think any kind of comprehensive ask has to include things like incident reports. Has there ever been an incident? Has there been a police involvement? Is it property damage? Did somebody get a dent in their door, or did somebody get whacked in the head riding by on a bike? I think that's number one. Number two, I'm going to guess, and I don't know this, I travel that road occasionally. I'm going to guess that a large share of the increased traffic on that road is members traveling to and from the course. And I'm curious, or would like to know, that at the very least there's some waiver or liability release that members sign off to avoid the possibility of a lawsuit the way you've described in your presentation. I'm also guessing that insurance covers a good chunk of this. And the last comment that I have is this is a huge ask. And so I would like to be certain, if I were to consider this, that all reasonable alternatives have been exhausted, that you can't just realign the holes to run parallel as opposed to across the road, that you can't just divert the Ferndale Road down and in behind the golf course and out the other side to avoid running through the field of play. That there isn't a way to lower the road bed there and put a berm to keep people from getting decked by flying balls. You still have the issue of crossing the road, but you could avoid some of the issues if I'm asking, could you avoid some of the issues with landscaping and road redesign of what's currently there? I think at a minimum, those kinds of issues need to be covered off, both by staff when they do their report and by the golf club when it comes back with its request. Thank you.
Good, thank you for that. Councilor Nishikawa, then Councilor Roberts.
Just doesn't want me to unmute today. Sorry. I would refer to the Ferndale Trail. It's interesting, multiple trail councils that I've been on with our township since the late 90s addressed that trail system as a future urban trail. So for instance, the type of use that the road is seeing currently, cycling, certainly the hiking and those other issues are an important thing for Port Carling. I don't see how this is going to be, how it's going to fit in. It wasn't clear to me on this presentation. I think there's an opportunity, but I think that further that we should be getting together, at least with the Trails Committee, to look at other possibilities or other options. I also tend to believe that, sitting on district for a few years anyhow, that they don't like townships to bring things forward unless we approve something, like that we have sent a direct ask or approval. And I'm not sure that going next month to district directly with this I don't know that we would be prepared to support the application as it stands. There's too many unknowns. But certainly, again, I would speak again from our trails perspective. We really are looking for that urban trail use. It's a very important part of a community, and Port Carling actually has an established one. Yes, we're working on the dump location and different things like that, but again, I would say don't lose that opportunity, folks from Port Carling. It's a very important. We all know how important trails are. We've seen that over the last few years for sure. But let's look for the right alternatives if there is one. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And before I call on Councilor Roberts, I just would say that it would seem that you're here today, Mr. Cullip and Mr. Rennie, to take our temperature more than anything in terms of the approach to this committee today. So to the words of both Councilor Nishikawa and Councilor Kelly thus far, it would seem that there's some directional homework that needs to be done. So I know you're listening and taking notes to this committee right now. Councilor Roberts, and then the mayor, and then Councilor Jagowitz. You're muted, Gord? You're muted?
There we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and apologize for that. I have concerns with this application, not so much the road going, we'll take care of the road. On one of your slides, I think you should add personal injury, because with the driving from the Shamrock, or people walking from the Shamrock Lodge, the people are wrapped in a car, but the golf ball hits someone walking, or a bicycle. There could be, so add that to that. Just a suggestion. But as pertains to the Hazelwood Trail, I am very reluctant to change anything in that Hazelwood Trail, and would really want to know how the golf course could facilitate that trail and the use of that trail by the public. And we refer to a dump, but that's, it's a historical dump, believe it or not. It's been there for a long time, and it's sort of what they used to do. So anyways, I would really want to know, and I agree with my peer, Councillor Nishikawa, you need to come to the Parks and Trails Committee meeting and really outline the impact of the neighboring property, i.e. The Hazelwood Trail. Thank you.
Good, thank you, sir. Okay, Mayor Harding and then Councillor Jaglowitz, then I'll ask the CAO for comment.
Thank you very much. I may direct my question, I think, to Director Becking in the process here. I don't think we're being asked to say, yes, we're going to move a road today. I don't believe we're being asked to say it's going to look like this, because if I look at slide 17 of the deck, I see 6 or 8 different roads and different realignments. What I believe we are being asked today is, would this council consider potentially moving the road? Yes, we have a bunch of issues and a bunch of questions saying, do we want to protect the Hazelwood Trail? How would that look? And I believe as part of the EA process, that's all we're doing here. It's a district road, so obviously the district needs to be involved. If we as a council, however, have no appetite in any way, shape, or form to do any environmental impact assessment on moving this road even 5 feet, then we can stop it today. Personally, I don't have an issue. I think Councillor Roberts made the exact comment that I would suggest. I'm not so worried about a golf ball on the side of a car. That's a mitigated liability. I am worried about a bicycler walking along, getting hit in the head with a golf ball, or somebody walking that road. And maybe there's an additional trail that bypasses the golf course just for walking. And I want to make sure for those representatives of the golf course here, that in particular moves. That is one thing I think that can mitigate 90% of the issues here without having to realign the road necessarily. But I'd like that to be part of the EA assessment. For Councillor Roberts' comment about the old dump, unfortunately, every old landfill across the District of Muskoka is a protected area, and you would have to do what's known as a D4 assessment before you could actually build within half a kilometer of that. So realigning a road or doing anything else, there's a whole bunch of paperwork, but the EA assessment would identify any of those with any potential alternatives. And I think that's all. So I can tell you, Director Becking, and I'll go to you again, all we're being asked today is, would we explore some alternatives? Would we allow the process of the alternatives to start or stop? And then the district also would chime in saying, yes, we would explore the alternatives or not. And so that's sort of, I guess, my specific question, because I'm in favor of exploring alternatives and understanding the impacts of all different alternatives before we have to decide on what we'd like to do.
Director Becking, you want to speak to that, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, my understanding is at this time, all you're being asked to do is to agree to participate in the process. Just a caveat, however, that the process that the proponents are asking you to go down is a process that is typically used by municipalities as opposed to private sector proponents. It is designed to achieve an outcome, and that outcome may not be acceptable to this council or to the future council. And I think it's important that everybody understands that at the end of the day, the proponents may end up arriving at a solution which may not be acceptable to the township.
Right.
And that they need to understand that ultimately, if the proposal is to involve municipal lands, then that gives the township, frankly, a veto over the solution. So anyway, as long as everybody is on the same page, then I can't see at this point, at least, any great harm to examining the possibilities.
Okay, good. Thank you. And prior to our two committee members, I will ask a CAO to comment just from that perspective, if I might. Thank you. Derek?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Just further to Mr. Becking's comments, I think he's absolutely right. I think he sort of confirmed the mayor's points. Further to that, though, the considerations that the municipality should look at is obviously some of the matters that were raised by committee. So what is the impact potentially on the Hazelwood Trail of such a proposal? How do we ensure that we have trail rights in perpetuity that we're satisfied with? Let alone the potential that if there is a road rationalization in this case, that portion of road, or perhaps even the entire Ferndale Road, could be potentially transferred to the municipality, and we need to look at it from the perspective of the additional infrastructure, the capital costs, along with the operating maintenance costs. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Okay, so Councillor Jaglowitz and Councillor Mazan, you handed these down now, Councillor Mazan? Sorry, so Councillor Jaglowitz, you go right ahead, sir. And then Councillor Kelly.
My question is for the delegation. I'm looking at the slide presentation. And by the way, I agree with the comments that were made previously, but I have one more to add. In your slide preservation, there's a highlighted area, and it says study and road construction / improvement costs to be borne by Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club. I wonder if you could just flush that out a bit and explain whether you're saying there that all costs that this municipality would incur in any realignment, both study and construction and so on, would be borne by the golf club. Is that what you're saying there?
That is correct. So the study would be undertaken by the golf course, the club, and if there are any road improvements that came out of it, the understanding is that the associated costs would also be borne by the golf club.
And just a supplementary, do you have some limit on that, or is that kind of open-ended? I was just curious.
Well, I certainly think the cost would be visited and established through the EA process, and certainly within reason. I suspect that the golf course would be willing. Certainly my understanding is the realignment of a road at this point is certainly within reason of the golf course.
Okay, so then
I pave it in gold, perhaps not so, but certainly expectations.
Thank you. So then I really have no objections in going ahead and examining this, but as long as it'll come back to us to ensure that all the comments that have been raised have been satisfied. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly. We'll wrap this up.
Thank you. This time, just a question. Is what we're talking about right now likely to result in site work, site environmental analysis? Because if it is, my comment would be, I think we owe it to neighboring landowners to make sure they're aware that there's lots of notice and that they aren't overly excited by the prospect of people wandering around on Crown land and on township land, doing surveys and doing assessments.
Would you like to answer that, Mr. Cullen?
Yeah, yes, thank you. And certainly all the comments have been very well received and are all aspects that would be addressed through a typical class environmental assessment. And any site works that would be required would follow and would have the appropriate notification, particularly if it's Crown land and or private land. And no intrusion on private lands would occur without landowners' permissions. And if I could just thank the mayor, I think those comments were exactly what I was hoping to summarize. What we are looking for really is support in proceeding with an environmental assessment study that would look at all of the viable options for dealing with the issues and the challenges that a road bisecting the golf course currently present. And that could include solutions within the golf course lands, could include the solutions I suggested about a separate trail, landscaping. So all of those elements would be addressed in an environmental assessment. And if whatever the preferred solution is, that would be detailed accordingly. And throughout this process, we would be looking at the township to provide appropriate input and consultation and partnerships, such that if we get to the end, whatever we're identifying is amenable to the municipality.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mazan, are your hand down or? You're muted.
Thank you. And through you, I've had my hand up and down partly by accident and partly on purpose throughout this because I didn't want to repeat comments. This is a bit of an unusual process because we've had a presentation come forward without something officially on the agenda for us to talk about. So I was trying to pick up on what staff's thoughts were here. Similar to many of my colleagues, I have a strong interest in ensuring we have public access to these trails and active transport, not opposed to, looking at things, but would like to be sure that this process is done in a way that the township, and I think this is what I heard Director Becking say, it's an unusual process with this EA, that at some point in the way, if something that comes back that we're still not comfortable with, that the applicant knows that doesn't mean this is, a done deal. I'm not opposed to having plans come forward, but want to be sure that we are protected in that way. And I believe, Director Becking, that's what I heard you say. I don't know if Director Becking's there.
Ken?
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it relates to township lands, if the proposal that comes back is not acceptable to the council, then frankly, that's the end of it, because at the end of the day, we own the property.
Okay.
I think there's also some potential planning, land use planning issues, and I would defer to Director Pink, who I expect will also have some considerable interest in this proposal at some point. And he would be in a better position to advise you on some of those issues.
Thank you.
I think what I heard, staff, to your point, Councillor Mazan, was approach with caution. And that's
approach with caution, but this process is also very unusual. And I think that's what I'm struggling with. And I think that's, I was picking up on what Councillor Kelly was saying about appropriate public consult, all of this. It just feels like, it's going to district next month. And yet this is the first time I've seen this.
Okay. No, so fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Caution with the sign of what's this process. So thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. And so, listen, I see the mayor's got his hand up, and Councillor Kelly. Again, this is rather unusual. It's very unusual, to be quite honest. We've heard the presentation, and quite honestly, it would seem to me that we could go on this for quite some time. My sense is, what I'm hearing from my fellow committee members is that this is not ready to even come here, let alone go to the district. And you can create a game plan where you next month you're going to the district. Well, I think when you get there, the first question they're going to say is, what did the township say? And I think there's so many questions that I've heard today that I think deserve to be answered. And I would, I can't even use the word defer, because in fact, we're not going to vote on anything, and I can take your temperature. I think that's what we're doing here. That in fact, I think it should come back. Personally, I think it should come back at least next month here again, and let's be more fulsome and fill out some of the questions that have been, if they need clarification, we'll certainly provide that as a township to you. That would be, I can ask you as a group right now. I don't even want to ask for a staff report, because I think that's premature, to be quite honest, but that's just me. So I guess I'll let the mayor and Councillor Kelly go, and we'll talk about it if you want to. But, or I can just look for a show of hands right now and ask, does this committee feel strong enough about this to some sort of a yes right now, and let them go off to the district and see what the district said? I'm not sensing that. I'm seeing a lot of shaking of heads. I'm saying no. Anyway, so gentlemen, the mayor, go ahead, and then Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Chair Zavitz, I believe we can't answer questions. Muskoka Lakes Golf Course can't answer our questions. We could be here for 6 months until we get some environmental impacts. We need to continue to follow through a process. My suggestion would be actually to get a staff report to outline where the public can input, where council can input, that we can provide ourselves with a guidance of how this process potentially moves forward. I can't say no at this point that you can't touch our land without understanding an environmental impact. And they're asking at this point, can we do the environmental impact? So somewhere along the line, somebody's got to move that first chess piece And they're here saying, can we do that? We can't stop them from going to the district. The district is going to come in and say, we are open to moving the road. We need to do an environmental impact assessment to move the road. But they've asked at this particular point to potentially use township road allowance. So we can point blank say, no, we don't ever want to touch our township road allowance. I've heard a number of questions around this table that would come out of an environmental impact study about how the trail would be, what would happen with wetlands, what would happen with public access, what would happen with the liability. That all gets fleshed out in the environmental impact study. And I think Director Becking would be the best one to guide us through that with a future staff report in tandem. And at the end of the day, remember, as Director Becking said, we can walk down this road all day we want. At the 11th hour, we can say, we don't like the results of the EA. We don't like having to move a trail. We can always say, no, this is 100% at the risk of Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club.
We say that, but with all due respect, our staff, just about to ask our staff to spend untold hours and days of research, et cetera. And so, I'm just not sure it's ready yet. And I guess I'll be asking you folks that in a few minutes. But Councillor Kelly, and then we'll get on with it.
Just a last thought. I think my support for this would be a lot better if the process, if the EA was initiated by and managed by the township and funded back by the golf club. I think that's a much more, I don't know there's a conventional way to do this, but that's a heck of a lot, has a lot more integrity and credibility if the process is done at our behest under a contract with the township and the funds flow back to us to pay for it.
Okay. So again, perception is the presentation we received this morning was heavy on the preamble, heavy on how we got to where we are, where they are, not we aren't where they are, and I think light at the back end, which is where we're stuck. So I'm going to let Director Becking have a comment, and then I'm just going to ask you your opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I got a promotion there. I frankly, I would agree with the mayor's comments. I have done numerous EAs over the years, and I can certainly provide you with some background information and some guidance in terms of how this could and frankly should move forward. As I said earlier, in principle, I see no great harm in proceeding with an EA. There are some twists and turns to it, which I think Councillor Kelly alluded to. I can certainly help to stick handle and guide you through that process if you wish. That would be my suggestion is let's not cast it aside out of hand. Let's take a look at it, consider it, and then if appropriate, then you can move forward.
Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Councillor Hayes, and then I'll get your opinion. Thank you. Councillor Hayes?
Yes, I believe that what we're being asked for is to allow them to do an EA on some of our property. They'll probably also be doing an EA on some private property and some district property. So that's just the first step. I don't see any harm in it. So I would probably support this going forward.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good. So then I'm going to ask the committee here and now. Do we have a consensus that we would ask for a staff report, that we'd ask Staff Director Becking to move ahead with a staff report on this? So now I'm saying no. Okay, so if not, I'm seeing enough no's, I suppose. How do we say yes? Yeah, heading up here. Okay, so again, stuck on this. Councillor Edwards, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Zavitz. I like Councillor Kelly's and that recommendation that if there's going to be an EA, especially on our property or anything else, that we should be hiring the people, and the golf course should be paying for it. It's as simple as this. Normally, you get consultants to tell you what you want to hear. And this way we can have a consultant who is completely neutral on this and get it back to us with the best options. So I would follow Councillor Kelly on that. Thank you.
Okay. Good. I'll let the other two speak, and then Councillor or the CAO would like to chime in. So Councillor Roberts.
Okay, I'm going to sort of tee off here. This should have been done in 10 minutes. They came into the delegation for 5. We let them speak for 10. They know what we said. Just get them to do the thing. Come back to staff, not to council. It's just very frustrating. We got 2 or 3 days of meetings. Sorry for being so angry.
Thank you. Well taken, Councillor Mazan.
I think I heard through this that we should have a staff report. I think staff has suggested they believe that's the appropriate path forward to help us with this. This is an unusual situation. And so I would support staff's thoughts on that. And I think it would help address the comments made by my peers, Councillor Kelly and Councillor Edwards as well, that everybody's thoughts would be incorporated. So that would be my
good. Good, thank you. And that was the question that I asked for a consensus of, and I didn't see it. So, I can ask again, but I see the mayor's got his hand up, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Chair. I was just one quick comment, because I've heard a couple of people say that the township should be the one responsible for this EA. You guys want to overburden staff? Let our staff be responsible for an EA for an outside proponent who wants to go across our land for a little bit. We have the ability to say no going forward. The EA is an environmental assessment. We will be the ones to be able to provide input. We can provide commentary. We can say no at any particular point we want. Let's push this off. This may never come to fruition, and I certainly wouldn't want Director Becking or Mr. Pink in any way, shape, or form to spend too much time other than reviewing a concept before this comes back for more public input, more public discussion, more council discussion. There's nothing forward saying, hey, you want to potentially use our land? Tell us how you're going to use our land. Tell us the environmental impacts. And at which point we can then decide, do we want to go forward with this or not? That's my recommendation. Director Becking has said he can provide some more clarity in a report future going forward about how we will impact this, our yeses, our nos, and where we go. So I think to Councillor Roberts' perspective, we're not voting on a yes or no. We can just say yes. Hey, go ahead, fill your boots, so to speak, with an EA, and it'll come back, and we can say yes or no going forward.
I think that is the rub there, in all due respect. I'm not going to say yes to that because we're here and now in this forum, and a lot rests on our yeses and our nos. So I think in that regard, and again, there's hands up, folks. I almost want to say to you again, there seems to be a certain comfort in a staff report, and at least we keep the thing alive, we keep it moving, and yet we're not showing an overwhelming support for it. We're waiting to get more information based on this 35-minute discussion we've just had. Can I ask again if there is enough interest in a staff report on this issue out of this meeting today?
Chair Zavitz, could I please, now that this has morphed into much more of a discussion than I anticipated, I would like to remove myself from this conversation and vote. So absolutely. I will get that to you, Lauren, my conflict of interest on the delegation, which is another unusual move, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Okay, Councillor Kelly. Oh, this is crazy.
The only reason that I think a staff report is a fine place to start, but if we're going to move right to the EA phase, I'm going to stick to insisting that the township commission it. Otherwise, what are we going to do when an opposition party comes along, wants to do their own EA on the same site? How do we tell them, no, we got it under control?
Do I have the authority to just thank them and say goodbye? Oh, okay, good. Thank you very much for that. Okay, Councillor, I'll tell you what, Councillor Hayes, Councillor Frank Jagowitz, you both have your hands up. So go ahead and then I'll wrap this up.
Okay, I'm not sure what we're asking staff to report on, because all the golf courses asked for is, can they look at alternatives? And our property may not even be one of the alternatives at the end of the day. If you're not comfortable with the EA that comes forward to township, you can ask for a peer review. So I don't know why you would encumber staff to do a report on something that may never happen. Staff has enough work to do on things that are going to happen.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay, Councillor Jaglowitz, and I'll wrap this up.
Yes, very briefly. I think that I'm siding with Councillor Roberts that this has gotten out of hand. I think that we've had discussion. I think the golf course can take what our views. They know our views. But if you're going to ask a question or have a resolution, I would ask that there needs a 2/3 majority to bring that on the table. So that maybe may have to come to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think given your comments and given the general tone of this, I am going to thank the delegation for coming forward today. They're good listeners, clearly. They created a good initial presentation. And I would ask thank them and let them come back to and whatever forum they choose to, based on a lot of what they've heard today. So I think we've given this due consideration, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to land this thing anywhere other than I'm going to thank you for your time, Michael and Tom, and I guess it's news at 11. Thank you very much. Have a day. Take care. Okay, it's 5 after 10. Maybe we'll take a 5-minute break for everyone, and we'll be back here at approximately 10:15, where we'll hear from Michael Silver regarding the Torrance Barrens. hopefully we can get back to our task at hand. Is Michael Silver? I don't see him on the screen. Is Michael? So Michael Silver, good morning, sir. You're just connecting. Let's see. There you are. Good morning, Mr. Silver. How are you today?
Hello?
Yes, you muted?
Can you not hear me?
Muted, Michael.
You can hear me. I can't hear you.
You're muted?
He's not muted, but.
Is it on?
All got your mics off.
So Michael, your audio is not working, but you're not muted. So can everyone else hear me?
Yeah,
And
we can hear him.
yes,
we can
yes, yes, good. Thank you. So
I'm
Michael,
not
can
sure
you
why you can't hear me.
hit a few buttons?
I can hear,
I
I
don't
can
have a
hear Mike
headset.
fine.
This.
Yeah, we can hear him fine. Maybe he's
You can
got
hear me,
his speaker,
correct?
maybe Mike has his speaker off.
I can't
So
hear
Still
you.
saying,
So maybe
But
he
it's
has.
showing me that all of your mics are off. Every counselor has an off mic.
oh.
So what do I do to correct that?
It's his mic I think it's his speaker that's off.
I
Mike?
think we're good now.
Mike, it was me, Michael. Well, I was the technical difficulty. Sorry about that. You go right ahead, sir. Welcome. Good morning.
Guys, I'm not sure what to do. My mic shows that it's on.
Michael, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hold on for a sec.
No.
How about now?
I can hear you.
All right, I fixed the problem. It was at my end. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, anyway, we're both at fault. Thank you very much for
it's
being
my
here.
fault.
Okay.
The thing had been muted. I didn't realize that.
Okay, well, welcome, sir. You have a delegation this morning, a 5-minute delegation on the Torrance Barrens. And you go right ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, first, I'd like to thank council for the steps that it took in eliminating camping and fire making in the area around the Barrens. That was hugely, hugely important, crucial and necessary. It will also dovetail nicely into what the working group is doing. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is just give you an update as to what the Torrance Barrens working group has been doing. And that is a group that's comprised of all the major Torrance Barrens stakeholders. Ruth Nishikawa is council's representative on it. There's a representative from Gravenhurst. There's the YMCA, there's the Clear Lake Association, the Muskoka Lakes Association, the Muskoka Conservancy, the Muskoka Ratepayers, the Pine Lake Association, as well as a couple individuals and myself. And it's headed by the Ministry of the Environment, Wade Mirant, who is the zone manager for this part of Ontario. He told me when we set out with the working group that it would be the capstone of his career if we could get the Torrance Barrens operating properly. And I took that as a very positive sign of his commitment. And we're hoping that this continues to run through. There's a lot of politics within the Ministry of the Environment. I won't go into it, but so far so good. So here's what we are up to. Number one, there will be a transition to provincial park status. That should have been started at the ministry's end. It was decided that park status, as opposed to conservation reserve status, entitles the area to better enforcement, protection, and regulation, and more ministry resources. So it just makes things better there. But that's a multi-year process, apparently. Initially, when the Barrens was created, I did not lobby for provincial park status. And the reason I didn't was because I was told at the time it would exclude snowmobiling, and some big snowmobile trails go through the Barrens, and we didn't want to anger the snowmobilers. In fact, we wanted their support. So we went the conservation reserve route. That's just an accident of history, but we're going to change that. The big thing is we're going to a system of designated camping sites. These will be the only places you can camp or have a fire in the fire cairn provided at the Barrens. The ministry says they're going to enforce it. They've done a study as to where these spots should be. I'm expecting there might be 7 or 8 such spots, and that'll be the only place you can do it. The fire will not be on vegetation. It'll be on rock in a fire cairn, and that'll be the only place. So we're getting some management now. And the ministry said they're going to enforce it. So that's good. I think you'll end up having to book a camping site, maybe online, and they're going to manage that process. We've already implemented a system of restricted parking. You'll see there's no parking on one side of the road and only so many cars as in the parking lots. This is helping to reduce the load on the area. We will have, I think, 3 dark sky viewing sites. There's the main site. That is an officially protected site in the management plan of the Barrens. As you know, it's been closed to vehicular traffic. The problem with that, telescopic viewing is part of the management plan of the Barrens. Today's telescopes need a vehicle to be able to move them. You can't move them by hand, they're too heavy. You can't cart them. The vibrations would destroy them, and they need to be powered electrically. So I think we've convinced the ministry that you need to have some vehicular access to the main viewing sites. I think you've got a map that shows where the main site is and the other 2 proposed. Access to these sites by a vehicle will be by permit. Again, probably online. You'll get a permit that says you can bring your vehicle for X number of days, that kind of thing. So again, the ministry says they're going to enforce it. Signage, there'll be new signage. Some of it will be kind of behaviorally oriented. You know, treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. And some of it will be consistent with these new designated spots, et cetera, et cetera. I will just say that from the township's point of view, I would highly recommend that you continue to advocate for yourselves vis-a-vis participation in the trail network. We want to get the boardwalks back. Right now, they're not there, and the trail system is something I think the town can usefully contribute to the whole area there.
Michael, if I could get you to wrap up, sir, please. You're at the 5-minute mark. Go ahead.
One final comment. Enforcement of the dark sky bylaw. This is crucial to whether we're going to be able to see the stars in Muskoka. And we had some hiccups this summer. It's a complaint-driven bylaw, and we made some complaints. And I won't go into the details, but we offered our lighting consultant for the benefit of the township or its bylaw officers who could sort of go through why this is important, what the provisions say and what infringes them. We didn't get a response to that, but that offer is still on the table. And I think the bylaw officers are of the view that there's some deficiencies in the bylaw. Now, if that's the case, we should work together to try and rectify it. The bylaw was drafted some years ago. If we want to have a dark sky in Muskoka, we need an effective bylaw. So I would please ask that your bylaw officer contact me, work with us, work with our lighting consultant, and let's get any deficiencies corrected so that we can properly enforce it.
Good, thank you. Okay, well, listen, thank you for bringing your report forward. I certainly know that this has come a long way working together. And thank you for all of your efforts. And of course, Director Becking, Councillor Nishikawa is hearing this. Rob at least our bylaw as well, so that we'll ensure that your voice is heard, and that some of these issues that you brought forward can continue to be on the table and be discussed. So hopefully that we'll see a better day. And I appreciate your time and thank you for bringing this forward, Michael. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. All the best. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Okay, item 4E, Tony Sinclair, welcome. Is Tony in the mix here? Tony has a 5-minute delegation on the Beaumaris Road parking. There you go. Welcome. Tony, good morning, sir. You're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Good. Okay, I will be somewhat shorter than some of your other presentations. My name is Tony Sinclair. My wife and I have a cottage on Bell Island, which is located about 2 kilometers northwest of Beaumaris on Lake Muskoka. And we understand that the township is currently studying ways to alleviate the shortage of lakeside parking on Lake Muskoka. Meanwhile, the township has started enforcing restrictions of parking on Beaumaris Road, leaving island cottagers with literally no place to park. All privately held parking in the area is completely booked up. The owner of a private lot at Beaumaris hopes to add 10 extra spots this year, but she tells me there's already a very long waiting list for the new spots, even though summer is still months away. So the nearest available parking area is Milford Bay Community Center, 2 kilometers away. This is not a practical solution for me. I'm approaching 70 years of age. I just cannot access my island property under the current restrictions. And in addition, of course, to our own car, there's no parking for extended family members, guests, local tradespeople. So what am I requesting? What I'm requesting is that while we wait for the new strategic plan on this issue to be developed, I'm proposing that we temporarily continue to allow people to access their island properties by parking on Beaumaris Road. This is what island cottagers have been doing for over 50 years since we acquired a property in 1965. It's not considered a dangerous place to park, as 2-hour parking is currently permitted. There are no houses opposite that could be impacted by this. So I'm asking to wait to put the new policy in place before scrapping the program that has been used for parking the past 50 years. This is a practical short-term solution to avoid a chaotic parking situation this summer. It brings no cost to the township, nor any adverse effects that I can see on anyone. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Tony, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for bringing that forward. We've had, as you would know, a multitude of dialogue on this issue, and certainly you're referencing the transportation master plan, which was blessed through our budgeting process recently through this very committee. I won't say it's the panacea, but it'll certainly address, look at, discover, uncover a lot of the issues, a lot of things that have been brought forward by certainly island dwellers and water access only people. So at this point in time, like I say, we've had a lot of discussion on it. I can't offer you much. I know that we recently effectively embraced the bylaw to enforce the parking there with the signs being up. And that is status quo for the moment. So while I would suggest to you, we're taking your words under advisement, and we continue to hear from many. I personally continue to hear from many of the folks, Fairhaven Island, et cetera, on solutions, creating solutions. So I do believe this is an ongoing discussion. So I'm not sure that's going to make you a happy camper today, but hopefully at some point in time down that road that we are working together with the communities so affected to to create solutions. So given that, I'll thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. It's a matter of public record, and you're being heard. Okay, so
Are there any suggestions as to what I do this summer?
Well,
I
you know,
literally cut off.
okay, and listen, you've said them. You've actually indicated, you know, the Milford Bay Community Center is ample parking there, a multitude of parking. How one does that mix to get from the dock to the, you know, with boats and with cars, et cetera. But I mean, that is the solution that we see here and now, and that many have are engaging at some point somehow. I know that there are some plans for some additional parking there, but you know, we can't really speak to those things here in this forum. But I do know that our Public Works Transportation Master Plan will embrace this as a larger topic, and so it's not, you're not being ignored. But I think for the moment there are no short-term fixes short of what.
There is a short-term fix, as I said, just parking on Beaumorce Road. It's been done for 50 years with no adverse.
Well, actually longer. I think that what's interesting about it is that this council, this committee at least, has embraced the idea. There are as many people for as against. It's an interesting topic. Again, the master plan is intended to address this because it's a known issue around the lakes. It's around, you know, our whole township. And it needs to be looked at. So we are. And I can assure you that over time, you know, there will be solutions coming forward, and hopefully they'll be fulsome and things that can work for a lot of people. In the meantime, you know, the arrangements you make and how you can manage to enjoy your property, you know, I guess are ongoing. And it's a shame, I see you shaking your head, but you know, we are all working together. We're all tax-paying residents. I do hope you can find a solution and continue to delegate and advocate. And that's that. So I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you. Have a good day. And I'm going to be moving on now to the Public Works category, item 5A, which is a report from Director Becking on the Asset Management Plan, parts 1 and 2. Sir, you have the floor for your report. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee will recall that I proposed a process to you back in January to fulfill the township's obligations with respect to our core infrastructure asset management plan, which we are required to have prepared and in place by the 1st of July of 2022. As I indicated, the plan in its initial form must address our core infrastructure, which is defined under the regulation as consisting of bridges and culverts, roads, and their associated features, as well as stormwater management facilities. So stormwater sewers and ditch lines and ponds and the like. The province has been quite strategic in terms of the requirements under the regulation because, as I've indicated in my report, approximately 80% of the infrastructure for which the township is responsible is in that category of core infrastructure. It's amazing how the old 80-20 rule continues to pop up throughout virtually everything we do. What you've got before you is the first 2 sections of the draft report. Section 1 is an introduction. It sets the context for the asset management plan and provides an overview of the basic principles with respect to asset management, and it outlines how the plan is to be assembled and what its contents should be. The second section, which is probably of greatest interest to you in this set, is the infrastructure report card, for lack of a better phrase. As I've indicated, the township has 21 bridge and culvert structures, which meet the definition of the formal definition of a bridge. We have 356 kilometers of urban and rural roadway, and about 650 kilometers of drainage conveyance facilities comprised of ditches as well as storm sewers in the urban areas. The assets that I've mentioned have a total value of approximately $398 million. And those are in 2020 dollars. The condition of the system is considered fair overall. There are some bright spots. There are also some not so bright spots in the condition of our infrastructure. We've got about 51% of the remaining life still in existence, which is the good news. Infrastructure that's considered to be in poor or very poor condition amounts to about $37 million worth of infrastructure, and those should be considered needs. The report indicates that it would be advisable that the township adopt a risk management strategy that will allow us in the future to better plan and prioritize our needs. I've also given you a bit of an assessment of the data that is currently available and what the level of confidence in that data is. I'm pleased to report that as it relates to the majority of our infrastructure in the core category, the data confidence is actually quite good. The reason for that being that roads and bridges have been considered a significant component of township responsibilities for decades. And as a consequence of that, there have been processes in place to ensure that the information is available and usable. The confidence in our drainage systems is not as good. Unfortunately, in many cases, once a pipe is put in the ground, it's forgotten about it until it falls apart. And we need to work towards correcting that over time. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's the sort of the quick and dirty summary of what I'm proposing. I don't necessarily expect that committee will be prepared to discuss and debate any of the findings at this point in time. But certainly if there are any comments that members of committee would like to raise or forward to me, certainly I will endeavor to try and accommodate those concerns. If I've not been clear in any way, by all means, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to explain to you how I have arrived at the conclusions that I've arrived at. And if there are errors that committee is aware of, then please, by all means, make me aware of them so that I can correct this, because this is a very important document to the township now and well into the future, and we need to get it right. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. A very credible document. Thank you so much for that. I do, before I call on the four folks that have their hands up, I will just note that we are, as committee members, being asked to forward any comments and questions to the director for explanation and for further consideration. And that we're simply going to receive sections 1 and 2 of the asset management plan. So given that, Councillor Edwards, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Zavitz. Excellent, and that report really, and that well done. Thank you. I just wanted to ask, at what time will docks and wharfs and landings be added to this? And that, like, I'm thinking, the Windermere dock, and that I know it's in good shape, but some of the other ones that we have, and that was the only thing. But other than that, excellent. Thank you,
Director Becky.
Mr. Chairman, docks and wharves, while they are extremely important to this community, are not considered core infrastructure in the terms of the regulation. I will be bringing forward a complete assessment of all of our infrastructure with the 2020 3 version of the asset management plan. Just to recap, the regulation requires that the next version of the plan address all assets under the control of the municipality.
Good, thank you. I guess to some, with our unique mix here in the Township of Muskoka Lakes, docks and wharves are core, given our usage. Councillor Hayes, then Councillor Roberts, and Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you. Through you, very in-depth report. I would ask Director Becking, was there anything in the report that surprised you that caused immediate concern? And if so, would that have any bearing to the plan maintenance and reconstruction, our long-range plan, that we would have to actually change that?
Good question.
A great question. To be quite honest with you, that's the purpose of the plan in the first instance, is to do precisely what the councillor is asking be done, or answer the questions that the councillor is asking. We're going to get to those questions. I'm going to say towards, if not in the next sections that are coming forward, then certainly in April when the final sections come forward. That having been said, I've been with the township now 3 years, going on 4. If there are any areas that I believe are of great concern, it is the condition of some of our structures, bridge structures. And as committee is aware, we're dealing with probably the biggest of those problems in the Bala Falls Bridge. So I think you're already doing the things, the most immediate things that need to be done. And the rest of it we'll get to in the fullness of time, as the lawyers love to say.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Roberts, start.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. And first of all, I'll begin by saying, Dr. Becking, you and your team have done a really good first version of the elephant report. I like the way it was presented. You got down, it was got down to risk management. You gave some indication of where we can, what items would be in trouble. And again, what I learned with reading right through it, we're focusing just on core. So 2 parts here. When you do the next piece in 2023 or whatever in asset management, so then probably not yours, but we need to include all the properties that we have scattered through that are vacant. I'm not really talking about road allowances. I'm talking about properties that we have, and they are assets, and we should have them in the inventory. What I think should be included in this report, and you do mention it in the report about the seasonal roads. You say season roads are included, but right away, or i.e. cottage maintained roads, are not. I would ask that maybe you consider including and mentioning, giving a little bit of information on the state of or the position on these roads that are maintained by cottagers, and in the appendix include, so that all council and future councils understand how big this is. And the roads, I'm sure, and I did mention it to Chief Morrell, he has a list of all the roads in Muskoka. So you could actually have a little list of, where are all these roads, just as the asset gathering or information gathering. So if you would consider that, would be great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And not to answer for Director Becking, but that is the spirit of our motion today, our resolution today, that we as committee would forward any comments and questions. I'm sure the councillor or Director Becking has duly noted your words. If you would be so kind as to forward those to him as well, for his inclusion down that road. And that's what we're doing here today. So thank you for that. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Supplemental, please.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I did bring it up. And I have talked to Dr. Becking, but I needed it to go on the public record.
Exactly. Good.
There's
Thank you.
thousands of, hundreds of miles of roads that we're exposed and have liability to. Thank you.
Well taken. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Director Becking. I would to put it in writing, but I found that when I sometimes write Director Becking, he responds to all of council anyway, so I might as well ask the question here. Once again, good report. I'm concentrating on the less than 40% service life remaining, the 34 million that you're suggesting. And I'd like to see a better time frame on that. And what I'm suggesting is that if that 34 million, or at least the major categories in there, could be broken down as to what would come due in the next 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years, and then just compare that with our 10-year capital forecast, not asset by asset, just in total, just a little report card as to how well we're providing for it. And I know it won't be exact, but it would give, because when I look at 34 million, we don't have 34 million in our reserves for roads and structures and stormwater. So it just would be nice to see how far we are along to meeting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Becking, is that something that is in your wheelhouse?
Yes, the Councillor Jaglowitz writes or asks a very pertinent question, and one that I will start the answer to. I won't complete the answer until we get to the final sections of the report, because that's where we start talking about financial strategies and the like. But in the next couple of sections that will come forward, we will talk about life cycle management. We will talk about levels of service, and that's what will in turn drive the answers to the councillor's questions.
Good, thank you. Excellent. Okay, well, good discussion. I'm going to read this motion moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Jagowitz. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee received the drafts of sections 1 and 2 of the Asset Management Plan, and that committee members forward any comments and questions to the Director for explanation or further consideration. All those in favor? Good. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, committee. Okay. So Director Becking, yet again, Parks and Rec Master Plan, Key Themes and Preliminary Directions, item 5B. I know that the chair of the committee, committee member Mazan, would perhaps like to preface the delegation that's here, indicated on the supplementary agenda, but it actually is under your auspices, Director Becking. So perhaps I would defer to you for a moment to, I don't know, position this, and then perhaps Chair Mazan, and then into the committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our consultant is with us today, and I'll ask if Councillor Mazan would like to make a few introductory remarks, and then we'll get into Mr. Hack's presentation, and then I will close things up with an overview of my staff report, and then we can proceed accordingly. So with
Excellent.
that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And so to you, Councillor Mazan, Chair Mazan of the committee, you go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Just very briefly, would like to thank our consultant staff and our steering committee for all the work they've done to date on this project. As you will note in the presentation and in Director Becking's staff report, the concepts or these directions are very much at a high level. I'd be remiss if I didn't share with this group. I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time, but our steering committee has discussed these at length and have had a very healthy dialogue about these concepts and these directions. And we believe that exploring these concepts with the public is a very reasonable next step. So I don't want to take away from our consultant's presentation nor our staff report, but would think that this group would like to know the amount of work that has been done in behind the scenes to see what you have before you today. So with that said, I think I'll hand this off now to Mr. Hack, who looks like he's walking somewhere. That's great. I don't know. John, are you there?
John's there.
John's
He's
there.
on the move.
I'll hand it over to Mr. Hack from
John, welcome. Welcome, sir. Sierra consultants. And welcome, you have the floor, and please proceed.
Great. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you to Chair Mazan. What I'll do is I'll share a screen. And
we'll handle that here. Good.
Oh, you've got it. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'll run through it. So as Councillor Mazan had said, there's a lot of work, fine work that's being done at the committee level and at the staff level, so that we're able to come back with update materials to the GNF committee, which stands, not just as a consultant's observations, but has the force of debate that's happened. And so we are taking a very sort of layered and progressive approach, so that we can come back with a plan that I think we're all can stand behind for consideration. So very quickly then, a brief update at a high level as to where we are and where we're going from here. So next slide. So there is, as you know, there has been a considerable amount of work done, and a lot of that has run through the committee. We were last in front of General and Finance back on December the 15th, where we gave what seemed like a lot of information, I know, but it really was still a tip of the iceberg of all of the work that's been done, both in terms of consultation with the community. Just as a quick reminder, we had about 360 responses, and we had a couple of different venues for making commentary as well, including the engagement platform that Council has. So it's been a pretty happy process in that regard, and it's not over yet. This plan has to go back in terms of directions to the public, and we'll be asking for some agreement in that regard here. But the engagement results, just to put them sort of thematically, very strong support for community centres, which was of no surprise to me, having visited every one of them and seeing the value that they have. Very clearly a desire for more outdoor facilities, but also a greater range of programming. So it's not just playgrounds and parks, but it's the things that are going to capture the attention and interests of a range of people, not just children, but youth and older adults as well. On the arenas question, just contextually, we know there are many issues on terms of possible perspectives on this, and the plan will help Council in finding the right path for the next steps. But just to break it down into satisfaction, people are generally satisfied with those two arenas in terms of the ability to go in and play ice sports or use the ice generally. The other work that we've done, of course, tells us, for how long that's going to remain the case, we're not sure. And people in the engagement were starting to point out some of the dissatisfaction that does exist there as well. So that made perfect sense that a top priority for reinvestment was indeed the arenas and the outdoor spaces. But very importantly as well, it's not just about replacement of ice. There was a clear message that indoor space that's not an arena and is not a general community hall is also on the radar as well. Next slide. Thank you. I'm not going to go through this in tremendous detail, but this is really themes which it's not just out of engagement, but everything we've done to date in terms of the themes that need to be addressed in the plan. I think it's fair to say everything has to be focused on the uniqueness of the township of Muskoka Lakes. And I'll speak to that just in terms of, a permanent population, which is relatively small. And if you come back and take the temperature of the number of people who have properties and live seasonally, 30,000 or so in the summer. So and that's the size of a small town, to be quite honest. So it creates some challenges for us in trying to get the right level of service in place. And so we've really addressed it from the perspective of making sure whatever we come back and recommend, that it makes sense to the township as a whole, and to the individual communities that make up the town as well. So very quickly, an abundant supply of rec infrastructure, that's clear, but it's a very diverse supply. The ability to get access to programs and community facilities is important, and that's why the community centers remain important. We're all aging, and this community is no different, even though you have a lot of people that come up from other urban areas in the summer. The issue of accessibility then goes hand in hand with that, and that is an issue in all of your facilities. The fact that you can't be an island unto yourself, and so there is a need to continue to focus on those partnerships. And I can go on, and I won't do that, but these are the themes in front of you that are going to find their way into the principles of the plan. And the principles of the plan, I think, for me, are probably the most important aspect, because the one thing we know about these plans is that other things will come along during the course of a council cycle, and you'll have to make decisions on those things. And you don't need to have a brittle, rigid plan that you have to follow. You need something that's flexible and malleable and useful. And so these themes will get morphed into principles. Next slide. So in terms of the drivers of the plan, though, to get a bit more sort of focused on it, as I mentioned, unique characteristics of the town, the changing population and growth dynamics regionally. The census has just reported at the highest level in terms of population numbers, and I don't know where, I haven't looked at those numbers because we like to look at the details. But over the next year, we're going to start to get a dribble of information out from the census that will be the start of what I think is something that we need to keep an eye on during the implementation of the plan, and that is how Muskoka is the dynamics of population influx, permanency of people, type of housing. These are all things that affect recreation and culture. So that is an important driver in and of itself. The volunteer capacity is evident, is motivated, but we need to sustain it primarily, and then potentially grow it, as you'll see perhaps later in the plan when we talk about some of the roles for the town. Asset management, I couldn't be more clear that with the number of assets that the town has and their current, pretty good condition, you have to plan for the future. So effective asset management is important, leveraging partnerships in both facilities, but also achieving programming. The one thing we heard again from people is they want more programming opportunities. And the bottom line is there has to be some change on many fronts, and this plan has to be one that we can get buy-in from people on the ground when we go back to the next slide. So how will the plan look? Just to tell you, so we're kind of still in this mid part, and it may be, it may be a little bit unclear as to how we emerge from what we've been reporting, but there will be a document. There will be, and it will be highly readable. It will be focused on flexibility there, just to go straight to one point. We want to make this plan strategic in nature to give councils enough flexibility. And to do that, we establish firstly a vision. It's not our vision as consultants. We are sponges for what we hear as being the elements of a vision provided by committee primarily. And then the public will get a chance to weigh it. Guiding principles. Then underneath that, service directions. Where do we want to go on issues of assets, organization, programming, fiscal accountability, that sort of thing. Underneath those umbrellas, a series of recommendations. Expect there to be 100 recommendations in this plan. No one should expect the municipality to tick off every single one of those over a period of time, but it's important to get them on paper. And then from that, that a la carte, you then can move to implementation and select those which are the most highly significant or most prioritized. And then, as I said, flexibility for budgeting. We will provide some capital costing around some of these particular items for staff to review, and that will be hopefully what we will end up with is what I call an evergreen document. What that means is essentially that it's a document that has some life to it after we produce it. It doesn't just become a paperweight, but is something that you turn to, that staff can turn to when writing staff reports to council, certainly at budget time, but also when they need to make decisions or council needs to make decisions during the course of a year. That document would be used as a manual and has the potential to be updated as well, so that it becomes a true master plan, which is a guiding principles document. Next slide. So visions of the plan. So, we've just thrown out elements here, and the committee has agreed to all of these things. So we haven't structured it, and it's, with some purpose, that we haven't sort of said, here's your vision. It's not for us to do that. But what we've identified as elements are there before you. I don't need to go through them, but the uniqueness, the international nature of Muskoka, I think, bumps up against some of the realities that you need to do a better job in programming. You need to maintain those partnerships. You've got to keep that small town character, but you still have to invest in new things. So that's where we are on that. Next slide. Guiding principles. So these are emerging, and I expect these to change a little bit. Certainly the wording might change. And certainly maybe the number of them will change, but I really like the idea of things that you can use in an interpretive way, but still address some technical realities about how you need to plan going forward. So some of them are a bit obvious, but you do need them. So strategic investment in recreation infrastructure goes without saying, but it has to be a fundamental principle, because whatever you do, there will be a tax implication associated with it. Recognize and leverage partnerships, that also has been spoken about. Accessibility, and we don't just mean in terms of accessibility for people with ambulatory challenges. We're talking about accessibility for people that are on fixed incomes, that are otherwise target groups within the community for effective planning, so on and so forth. As it relates to the community center model, we think you need to have some renewed investment in how those community centers are organized and supported, and I emphasize the word supported. And in terms of programming, really just continue what's being done, but there needs to be more investment in the ability to offer programs and support those that can develop the program. So that's what we mean by a community development approach. Organizational capacity then falls from that, as does integrated asset management planning. So you know exactly what you need to your existing playgrounds, buildings, trails, walkways, even before you start thinking about building new things. And then all of that is wrapped up into recognition that regional cooperation with the district and others should be something that staff are continuing to push along. Next slide. We're almost there. So the service directions, there are essentially three sort of umbrellas. One is improving the offerings of the municipality in terms of some facilities, the programming and partnerships. The second one is for those issues on facility planning that do require some head-on consideration. This is the plan to do that. This is the process in order to do that. So rethink some of the facilities, and then an organizational response as well. So just get to the last slides there. Next one. So enhancing program offerings and partnerships. These are the kinds of things where you can, as you can see on the page there, there's a number of things, but it involves partnerships that already exist to some degree, but need to be continued and supported. So that's things like, supporting Ontario parks, continuing to work with the schools for access to their facilities and vice versa, and identifying children that need to be supported through some of the rec programming, but also private development. You know, as Muskoka is going to see some new resorts over time, you know, that model of having a community access component to some of those recreational opportunities in those locations is important, and things of that nature. Expanding passive recreation opportunities. That is a big thing in planning at the moment. It's not all about sports fields and active pursuits. It's about unstructured recreational opportunities. People really want those things. So we're looking at things like pump tracks and you know, different kinds of trails that can be developed. And then water access. Obviously, if you look at a map, you know, the ability to travel by water in Muskoka Lakes is not only a fact of life, but it's something that should be provided for. The question is of what is the role of the municipality with its infrastructure that it owns in assisting that process. And that's what we're currently working through with committee. Next slide. So in terms of the rethink for the facilities, it comes down to, and we've gone through the realities of some of the issues around utilization and the amount of capital that's going to need to be put into the two arenas and their age of the arenas and so on and so forth. The way that we are going to address this and come back with more specific recommendations for the committee and for council is to develop what we're calling a progressive plan. And that is, firstly, recognize all of the questions that are out there and start the process of trying to answer some of those questions. So it's really about exploring feasibility. So putting capital dollars aside to be able to fund a rigorous feasibility assessment of what the next major facility is going to look like in the township. That's an important question. And then within that, what we call is, one of the things we heard was dry use space, gymnasiums. That is something that is quite clearly a requirement, even probably more than ice. And so we want to focus on that. In terms of the community centers, if you look at the community centers, the value of all of them is apparent. The focus of where an emphasis on programming and priority for capital expansion potentially, because these are essentially multi-use facilities in some ways themselves. So we're talking about some of the the larger facilities. This is a model where we think you need to put some emphasis on those as a place for additional programming and investment. And then accessibility goes without saying. Make any change in these buildings and you have to address accessibility. Next slide. Thanks. So effective recreation organization. And I would put this top of the list, to be honest, in order to create an evergreen planning document, one that you can continue to move along without it being essentially something that has to be crammed into existing staff job descriptions. I think there needs to be, and we'll come back with justifications for what we're asking, is to consider the need for creating some staff positions within the existing organizational structures that you have to achieve many of the things that I've just spoken about on here. So it's expanding staff resources to support recreation. And in so doing, it's actually that's the key to unlocking some perhaps improved cost recovery on some of the programs as well. And so, we'll come back with some details. Happy to answer any questions, but this is one that we're going to push through fairly aggressively in terms of the next stage with committee. And the next slide, please. So where do we go in terms of the next steps? So we do now, pending discussion today, want to be able to go back and start to draft out some of those recommendations, some of them very detailed, some of them very lofty in goals, to get that as a discussion with committee. Once that is done, take those items and make them more attractive to the public in order to be able to understand the key directions, and that will be a public meeting of where the directions are going and the recommendations. Once we have achieved that, we can then actually draft the plan for council review, and that doesn't take an awful long time to do because it's laid on all of this previous work. And then council would then get the chance to review the details, the language, the wording of a master plan document, and then consider whether or not it is able to adopt the plan. And we certainly hope that you would be able to. So that's it, I think. Maybe there's one more slide, just inviting questions. So I'll hand it back to you, Councillor Zavitz. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, given where we are with this, I know the architect of the report, Director Becking, is here with us. Director Becking, I might give you a little latitude in terms of how far you or not you want to go with your words as it relates to prefacing this this plan and the resolution we have in front of us to go to the public. You're frozen. Okay, I'm frozen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Councillor Mazan and John for their words. We've heard from the public through our interactions to date. I think it's important at this point now we've tried to coalesce that information into a series of directions. And I think it's important that the next step be to validate and make sure that what we think we heard is in fact what we've heard. So hence the reason for the resolution that will be placed before you. I think the process is following the natural course of a master planning process. I know that when we met with the steering committee, they were frankly concerned, particularly as it relates to the financial implications of some of these directions. And I don't think that anyone is trying in any way, shape, or form to diminish or dilute those concerns. On the contrary, but what we do think that is appropriate is to explore what the opportunities are, and to give the township a document that can be used as a guide. There's not going to be anything carved in stone. This council and future councils will ultimately decide what we do with as it relates to parks and recreation services. But I think it's important that there be some guidance to give us direction and allow us to move forward for the benefit of the community. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back to you, and if there are any questions of committee members, we'll endeavor to answer them.
Thank you. And for the support of the committee, I wonder if you might illustrate to us in 50 words or less, what does the document that would go out for public feedback look like? Have we seen that? Is it here? Is it your so how would that, what complexion would that take?
The content of the presentation that will go forward will be a summation of the information that has been presented to you to date. And John, I'll ask you to chime in if I step us in the wrong direction, but we want to share with the public in a summary form the information that's been presented to you today, what we believe we've heard, the background from our various surveys, how we've summarized that, and what the key directions are out of that, and make sure that we can get some positive feedback from the public that, yes, you've heard the right things.
Yeah, I could just elaborate if I could just momentarily, Councillor. It's the form depends on how we're going to go to the public. If this is an in-person meeting, we would produce information boards. You would literally walk in, and you would go, board to board that would be set up, and you'd have a summary of information and addressing some questions. People, what choices do people want as it relates to particular issues that we're putting before them. So it's very directional. It's not designed to be a report as such. We want to specifically not go to the public with a report, because we don't want to give the impression that we've heard them once and here's the report. What do you think? So it's an interactive process, and if it's an online version of a meeting, and there's no reason why you can't do both, actually. We're doing it in another municipality where you have an online and then an in person. You can gather the input using the same format, presentational format. Thanks.
So at this early juncture, it's to be determined, as I'm understanding it. It hasn't actually been. I guess the committee would embrace a particular way forward, and that's what we're blessing here today.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, from our perspective. Yeah.
Good. Okay. I see Councillor Mazan. Chair Mazan has a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to the committee for indulging. Quite a bit of time and effort has gone into this. So I do want to thank our consultant, but I recognize we went a little bit over time. I think the recommendation by staff is, and our committee has been, after some robust thinking and discussion, is to take these high level concepts out to the public. Let's bench test it to make sure we're on track, and then we will come back to this committee. But I think what you've seen, even as a touch point here, is there's a lot of heavy work and slogging happening in behind the scenes to try and bring forward the most succinct and appropriate and professional looking document out to the public, and then back to this committee as well. So just a kind of a closing comment that our committee is supporting the idea of sending these concepts out to the public for their feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes, and then we'll wrap this up. Madam Mayor.
All right, just for you, a couple of comments. I would hope that the programs would be a bottom-up feed, as most of the volunteers run the programs at our community centers. Opportunities could be given on a township-wide, but for now, our communities pretty much run most of our programs. A lot of our programs, just so that you know, for the attainable, the cost to go to most of our programs are very, very low or mostly zero. And another comment that was made earlier in one of the other reviews that I'm sorry I didn't comment on sooner was you commented on the people from our area that leave and go to the towns for recreation. Just so that you know, there is a flow of those people from the towns coming to our programs as well. All of the programs that we run in Walker's Point, I will say, have people from the town attending.
Good, thank you for those comments. Mayor Harding.
Thank you, and just a word of thanks to Councillor Mazan for leading this committee. Also, Director Becking for all your hard work, and to Sierra. A ton of work is in here. We've got a ton of facilities. We interact with the public on a daily basis, and we get in trouble when we close arenas regularly. So we need to try and understand how we continue to, in a recreational facility and through all of our facilities, interact with the public. So I'm excited to move this forward, to make sure that we are and sort of bench test, as Councilor Mazan said, some of the ideas on the table, and the real heavy lifting, though it's already much of it occurred, is the tough decisions are going to have to be made going forward. So just a word of thank you, and I'm fully in support of this.
Good, thank you for that, and let's move along. So seeing no other hands, I'm going to read this motion moved by Councillor Edwards and seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that public feedback be sought on the key findings and preliminary directions of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. All those in favor? Good, that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you for your time ongoing. Thank you to Director Becking and to Councillor Chair Mazan. Okay, good. So we're going to move along to item 5C now, which is a report again from Public Works relating to the Battle Falls Bridge additional design considerations. I see that Councillor Edwards has his hand up, sir. Go ahead. Nope, your hand's up, but you're shaking your head no. Okay, good. So is Tim Tim coming on the screen, or Director Becking? Would you like?
I'll handle the report, Mr. Chairman.
Good, thank you.
Committee will recall that you gave us direction with respect to the reconstruction of the Bella Falls Bridge last year. At that time, however, there were a couple of outstanding issues that needed to be addressed. The most significant of which is this issue of some kind of public lookout from the area of the bridge. Staff committed to come back to you with some alternatives. Those two alternatives are before you. One has a offset retaining wall and creates a viewing platform to the north and west of the proposed structure. The second alternative provides for the raising of the existing retaining wall and the construction again of a viewing platform at that location. Of the two, the first alternative is estimated to be the least expensive of the two alternatives. I would argue that it's also probably the greatest from a public safety perspective in terms of having the viewing platform offset from the edge of the waterway. The decision before you is, are we to have a viewing platform? And if so, which of the two alternatives would you prefer? The second issue is an issue that has been raised by the public and more specifically the Bala and Bloom group, chief among them. At one time, there were floodlights which illuminated the falls area downstream of the current bridge. They have indicated a desire to see those reinstated. The existing lights are in very poor condition and have stopped working. There is an opportunity to incorporate lighting into the underside of the bridge to illuminate the area. We've given you a rendering of what that might look like. The lighting system is extremely flexible in that it can be made to be single colors, multiple colors. It can be strictly white. It's the technology is such that it can be readily adapted to seasons of the year, special events, and so on and so forth. The decision before you is, do you want some form of lighting of the falls? And if so, what would be your preference in terms of some kind of colored lighting versus non-colored lighting? The report indicates the likely costs of these various alternatives. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer questions or assist you in any way. Good, thank you.
Okay, I would expect a few questions. I guess as it's related to, there's Councilor Nishikawa. So you go ahead. Now, I will, sorry, Councilor Nishikawa, just I will ask Corey Moore to come on and provide comment as well from his perspective, but maybe I'll let you go first. Councilor Nishikawa, you go ahead. And then Corey has a few words.
Thank you. Through you, to Mr. Becking, I'm just going through the photos, and I guess my preference is, yes, I'm in favor of any lighting, and I'm not going to decide what colors those lightings would be. I think that Communities in Bloom could give us guidance on that. I'm not quite clear about the when we're looking down of the view from, I guess it's page 7 of the documents. When we're looking at the actual falls themselves, and there's a couple of options there. Lookout 1, lookout 2, and I actually happen to prefer lookout 2. I see a safety issue, and in fact, I've experienced some of that over the years, of what happens after, time at the key, for instance. And I really don't know that our municipality should be taking, first of all, trying to create plantings down there. I know we're going to have some tree removal. I don't think that we should have plantings down there, because I don't want people to go down there, period. I don't want there to be a way to go around that fenced area to get into that section. I do have a question, though, of what is our partnership with the rail? And in fact, are they going to come along and clean up some of these, messy spots? I don't know if it's just a matter of parging or something in that matter, but that's my concern. As you pointed out, I actually do like the first layout, the concept 1, but in fact, I like concept 2 when it comes down below. Again, somewhat eliminating those plantings that I think are noted as 1, 2, and 5. But I'd like to have a bit, and also if I could add, is there any way to also address, I've had concerns brought forward to me over a few years now about the neighboring property below the church that they've actually, and I know it is not our municipality's property, but in fact, there has been some items placed very close to the water that are not visually very nice. And I'm just wondering if in future that could be looked at and made recommendations to CN or CP, I should say. Sorry.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I suppose before Councillor Bridgman, I'll ask Corey to chime in. I would state, though, and for the record, these choices that we're being given here as a committee are above and beyond the budgets that are already approved. So what we're looking at here is brand new money just coming out of our budget cycle. So I believe each one of them is $100,000, not to be negative, just to be real. That's what we're contemplating here and now. So with that, Corey, you have the floor, and then Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Good morning, committee. I won't take too much time, but I'd be remiss if I didn't take a quick opportunity to highlight these initiatives in relation to our recent CIP. Both the inclusion or improvements of viewing platforms, particularly in the Bala Falls area, and the lighting of the falls themselves were included as public realm initiatives in the CIP itself. So with that, definitely very appreciative of Director Becking including them in this report for consideration at this time, as it is the time with construction beginning later this year in this area. The second point I just wanted to reference, and you'll hear a little bit more about it this afternoon as well, is our township's recent success with some funding opportunities. And I think a lot of that success has come from the completion of these plans and that background work with the community to identify the priority areas. So if supported and further ratified by council, it could be an opportunity for staff to investigate some funding applications as well too to help with those costs. So I just wanted to add a couple points there. Thank you, Chair Zavitz.
Thank you, Corey. Well done. Councilor Bridgman, then the mayor.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Actually, you answered my exact question, was what about the financial end of this? So I guess to Director Becking, if we put $100,000 out, this is a new spend. You can't find it anywhere in your budget to current budget to cover this at this point, because I think that's a critical question.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that I would be prepared to suggest that we can absorb this kind of an expenditure. We're talking something in the order of 10% of the estimated value of the work. And while there might be a little bit of flexibility in the existing budget, I wouldn't suggest to you that it's going to be anywhere near that amount of money. That having been said, and I don't know whether I'm stealing Mr. Moore's thunder or not, or maybe you are already aware, but you'll recall that last year we rebuilt the Portage dock, which was $220,000 for round numbers. Mr. Moore was successful in getting a grant for a portion of that project to the tune of about $160,000. So as a consequence, we didn't have to draw the full 220 out of reserve. So thanks to Mr. Moore's efforts, the township has been blessed with some benefits. In any event, I would concur with Chair Zavitz's comments. It should be considered additional monies out of an abundance of caution, and I would say that certainly we can do the work if that's what council wishes us to do.
Thank you, Mayor Harding.
Thank you very much. I'm struggling with $200,000, $100,000 for a platform, $100,000 for lights on a $2 million project. And I appreciate people wanted a viewing platform. And I'll look to our Ward A councillors for a little bit more direction on this. The reality is the South Falls, the flow over the South Falls has changed dramatically since we put a hydro plant in. I'm not sure people stand there. Sometimes there's barely a trickle going through the South Falls. So number one, standing and looking at it is going to be very different. In the original bridge that we had, we only had a viewing platform on the eastern side of the bridge. Now that we're going to have walkways on both sides, I can look north or south or east or west on the bridge by the existing sidewalks that will be on the bridge to automatically gain a little bit better viewing platform. So if you had me to guess today, do I want to spend $100,000 to build a little area beside the bridge to look under a bridge at the stone concrete abutments that may or may not have water flowing through them? I think you know where my feeling would be on that. The second area, again, we're going to put some lights under there. We are being criticized regularly about dark sky and lighting and lighting and lighting. And if somebody said the North Falls, that might be another story, because that is sort of the scenic and people sit in Margaret Burgess Park and look. And occasionally we want to light up the falls for special events. But again, to put $100,000 for underwater lights, I'm not sure that's prudent, because one or two people may have asked, it wasn't part of the original. And I just struggle with both of these applications or both of these concepts to move forward and add a couple $100,000 to the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And in response to the mayor's question, if I might, as chair prior to Councillor Jaglowitz, I would only comment that I share his exact commentary. There are two viewing platforms now, one off of the pre-Cambrian Shield parking lot, one down south of the cenotaph where one can walk right to it. We have a new bridge coming and it's going to have full access, full visibility. So I won't be in support of either of these as well. Councillor Jagwitz, you go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I really am not going to comment on this because I'm not from that area, but I will make a general comment. And here we're talking a couple $100,000, but just remember when we get to council tomorrow, we're also looking at a $200,000 cost overrun on the fire hall renovation. So how many times can we use that money we saved on rebuilding a dock? But maybe the answer is if there is funding available, if Corey can find funding, maybe that's the answer. Anyway, I'm not trying to share a comment for or against. I'm just pointing out that we just have to somehow decide where our priorities are. Thank you.
Okay, good thought. And I'm seeing no other hands. Okay, I have a resolution to read here, and I'll do so. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved, the committee directs staff to incorporate a north viewing lookout into the Battle Falls Bridge Replacement Project, as well as the preferred concept as illustrated in Appendix A to report PW-2022-011. Now there's a second part to this, which is of course the lighting. Can I call them separately? No, I can't call them separately. And that committee directs staff to incorporate an underbridge lighting concept into the Battle Falls Bridge Replacement Project, as well as the number of spans to be lit and the lighting color. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jagwitz.
Just a clarification, is the proposal for option 1 or option 2? I didn't quite get that. Is it for
It's for both. It's both. It's
No, I meant there's 2 lookouts. Which the lookout part is which of the 2 options? One was much more, one was 100 and one was 300.
North, sorry, so it's this is incorporating north viewing lookout. Ken, if you could provide, I don't know, clarification on.
As I indicated, Mr. Chairman, staff preference would be for option 1, but it's entirely up to committee to give direction.
So what is the motion? What is the motion?
We'll do it, whatever you wish.
No, it's not clear. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think it actually, the motion on the floor is to create a northern viewing platform for the cost of $105,000, $95,000 plus $10,000 design. Staff is not recommending option 2 on a design which is in excess of $200,000. So we have an option in front of us to say yes to that. Yes, the lighting component has been added in this motion, and I'll go to the clerk to confirm we can vote in favor of this for both. We can turn this down and then separate if we wanted to bring back a second motion just for the lighting if this fails or it goes forward. So I think that we should vote on this first of all, and then suggest, do we have appetite to move forward or back? Because I think it might be packaged.
Thank
anyway.
you. Thank you for that. Councillor Jagwitz?
Just another clarification. So that clarifies the first part. So on the second part, there's several options on the lighting. Which option is in this recommendation?
Director Becking?
The option before you is the colored lighting. The difference between colored lighting and white lighting is less than $2,000. So it's really irrelevant.
No, is it one section or 5 sections for a cost of?
It's all of the sections. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
That was the point. So it's the highest cost. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have that. The question has been called in front of you. Given that discussion, all those in favor? Okay, 1. Okay, all those opposed? Good, thank you. Okay, thank you, Director Becking. You're free to go to lunch. Item 6, corporate services. Item 6A, we have a report from Chriselle Story, land and agreements, sale of an original road allowance application, Billinghurst, roll number 9-1-055-03. Chriselle, go ahead. There you are.
Thank you, Zavitz, and good morning, committee. The township has received an application for the sale of a portion of an original road allowance from an abutting landowner. Based on staff comments, it is recommended that approval be given subject to the noted conditions. And with that being said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. Committee, do you have any? I see no hands. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa. I'll read this motion, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that original road allowance application ORA/05/21 Billinghurst be approved, subject to the following conditions. The township be in receipt of correspondence from the landowner of roll number 9-1-055 abutting the portion of the original road allowance to be closed within 60 days of the conditional approval of this application. The correspondent shall confirm or waive their interest in the northerly 33-foot portion of the original road allowance. 2, upon confirmation of the landowner of roll number 9-1-055 confirming or waiving their interest in acquiring the 33-foot portion of the original road allowance to be closed, a corresponding draft numbered reference plan of survey shall be prepared and provided to the clerk for review within 1 year of the date of this conditional approval. 3, that the township be in receipt of the following from the acting solicitor. 1, confirmation that public notice of the proposed disposition was published pursuant to township policy C-LS-06. 2, confirmation that the District of Muskoka and other applicable agencies have no concerns with the proposed disposition, and that 3, a road closing bylaw, a declaration of surplus resolution, and any related necessary documentation to effect the disposition. 4, payment of any applicable fees for land costs, solicitor's time and disbursements, as well as a confirmation of applicable property taxes have been paid up to date. All those in favor? Good, carry unanimously. Thank you. Okay, I'll call on Chriselle again regarding sale of an original road allowance application. Ricard, roll number 9-1-055. Chriselle.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Again, so the township has received an application for the sale of the other portion of the original road allowance noted in the previous application from the other abutting landowner. Based on staff comments, it is also recommended that approval be given subject to the noted conditions. And with that being said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Okay, resolution moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that original road allowance application ORA/02/22 Rickard be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the township be in receipt of correspondence from the landowner of roll number 9-1-055-03, abutting the portion of the original road allowance to be closed within 60 days of the conditional approval of this application. The correspondent shall confirm or waive their interest in the northerly 33-foot portion of the original road allowance. 2, upon confirmation, the landowner of roll number 9-1-055-03 confirming or waiving their interest in acquiring the 33-foot portion of the original road allowance to be closed, a corresponding draft numbered reference plan of survey shall be prepared and provided to the clerk for review within 1 year of the date of this conditional approval. 3, that the township be in receipt of the following from the acting solicitor. 1, confirmation that public notice of the proposed disposition was published pursuant to township policy C-LS-06. 2, confirmation that the District of Muskoka and other applicable agencies have no concerns with the proposed disposition, and that 3, a road closing bylaw, declaration of surplus resolution, and any related necessary documentation to effect the disposition. 4, payment of any applicable fees for the land costs, solicitor's time and disbursements, as well as confirmation of applicable property taxes have been paid to date. Up to date. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, committee. I hope I don't have to read another one of those. Item 6C, welcome, and so thank you, Chriselle. I would welcome Mark Donaldson, the Director of Financial Services, for his preliminary 2021 financial results. Welcome, Mark. You have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Morning, Committee. So the report before you reflects an early snapshot of our 2021 operating and capital results. There will be further adjustments as the audit is completed, but staff have done a high-level review of these results and made any adjustments that were material in nature. The transfers to reserves, you'll notice, include a preliminary surplus of $595,755 from the building services area, which would go to the building reserve. The volume of the building services area over the past year is well documented, hence the surplus there. And the remaining surplus transfer to reserves of $435,747 relate to all other operations of the township. As well as the variance from the approved budget. In the report, staff have included a variance from the 2021 forecast for information that was included in the recently approved 2022 budget. Table 1 of the report is a presentation of the results by revenue and expense category as presented in the budget that was recently approved. Table 2 is the same information presented by operating division on a net expense basis. And the report includes explanation of the major variance drivers for each of those items. Capital spending is reported at the time of the report was prepared is summarized in Table 3, and there is a detailed listing in the appendix by project. A number of the projects have not yet been invoiced at the time of publication. That information will be updated when the final financial results are completed for the year. And then at that time, reserve balances will also be updated and presented to committee once all the final capital expenditures are recorded. I think that is the extent of my comments that I'll make at this point. The information is in the report, and I'll leave myself open to questions, Chair.
Councillor Jaglowitz, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Director. Excellent report and very timely. I'm pleased to see it that way. I just want to see if I understand it correctly. What I did is I added up the $435,000 that got transferred to the reserve and added to the $419,000 that didn't get taken out of the reserves, and I came up with an operating surplus of $854,000. Before the $595,000 surplus that was in the building department. Would that, so our actual surplus is close to $1.5 million, of which $600,000 is the building department. Would that be a fair statement of the reports?
Mark?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So that is correct. If the $419,000 had been reported as a draw from the reserve on the revenue side, there would have been a higher transfer to reserves in the expenditure side, which would represent the surplus that you're representing. I have omitted the transfer from reserves as was in the budget because it was determined that funding was actually not required because there was sufficient savings from other areas to cover that one.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions, I'm going to read the motion. Thank you, Mark, for your presentation. Moved by Councillor Jaglowitz, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that staff report FIN-2022-006, preliminary 2021 year-end financial update be received for information purposes only. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Committee?
Thank you, Committee.
Okay, good. Okay, item 7A. So as we move through our agenda, item 7A, minutes of the Public Library Board meeting of December 14th, 2021, and there's the CEO, report of December 2021. We'll receive those into the public, and thank you very much for those reports. The minutes of the Recreation, Parks, Trails, and Facilities Master Plan Committee, Steering Committee, held on December 2nd, as referenced in your agenda. We accept those minutes into the public record. Item C, minutes of the Recreation, Parks, Trails, and Facilities Master Plan Steering Committee meeting held in January 28th, 2022. Those minutes, thank you. And item 7D is a report from our fire chief, Chief Morrell, regarding the fire master plan. And I am to acknowledge that there is a consultant here.
I don't think he's here.
Oh, okay, good. So I guess we'll hand the floor over to Chief Morrell. Welcome, sir, and go ahead.
And through you, Chair Zavitz, my apologies. The consultant had a prior commitment that occurred at 11 o'clock, so he had to depart, but really this was going to be an introduction to council, and a lot of the information council has in the presentation package that is contained with this report. So in front of council right now is a report that provides an update to the master fire plan process. And if you could note, as you flip through the presentation that's in your package, we could display it if possible, but in the interest of time, I can actually quickly take you through it if everybody can see it. I'll highlight that, note that the entire team of this master fire plan consultancy is made up of fire service professionals with no less than 25 years of experience. And all of them have had roles as chief fire officials in other municipalities. So I would defer to their experience in this area. Council will receive information in the master fire plan that will help inform decisions for council concerning fire safety programs in the municipality for the next 10 years. The community risk assessment is now required in legislation. That is another driver for doing a master fire plan. This is to recognize risk, create awareness, manage the risks, and aimed at reducing all incidents within the township. The intention of the master fire plan is to make our communities safer and proactive rather than reactive. I'll highlight for council the scope of work that council should be aware of. The scope of work that has been involved in the process of the plan is an evaluation of our facilities that looks at the condition of the facilities and whether we are meeting all our obligations under law. Looks at a station location review, analyzing how we're doing today in terms of where those locations of the stations are. It looks at the apparatus that we use, that is the fire trucks that we use to actually respond to calls, and the needs inside of those apparatus. Looks at the service level standards of how we perform the fire services, the services that we provide. It also looks at the staffing needs internally, the community risk assessment, the training and fire prevention component inside our organization, updating the old 2014 master fire plan and ensuring that we've covered off everything from that plan, and our emergency management plans going forward. Out of the master fire plan, council will receive recommendations. Now, those are recommendations for council to evaluate one at a time. And usually we look at this like a map. Fire chiefs are looked at like the captain of the ship. Council sets out the policy or a map, and then the ship is guided along its way. There are currently, to date, surveys out in the public getting consultation with various community groups. They've been contacted directly, just so council's aware of the feedback that we're looking at. And the public is now invited to provide feedback via the engagemuskokalakes.ca/fire master plan website. So that's engagemuskokalakes.ca/fire master plan. And that survey will sit out there for public input until March the 15th. So we would ask that council help us creating awareness around that. The second ask of council is we want to advise council that the consultant plans to contact council via email in the next 2 weeks and hopefully set up one-on-one meetings with council. They have a series of questions they'd like to ask council. If councilors should not want that, we would ask that they would please get back to the consultants and indicate whether or not they'd be available to actually have those meetings. And if council could please turn to the very back page of the presentation, you'll notice a timeline for the project, so you can kind of track the progress of the project. You'll note that we're in the middle of the project right now. We do propose at the next GNF committee to have you meet the consultants. They're not just a mysterious group of people that work in the shadows, but in the interest of time today, we thought that it would be best to have them meet you when they actually present the draft community risk assessment, and that will provide council the opportunity to have a little more back and forth with them about the risks that are currently happening here in the township. I now stand for questions.
Good, thank you. I personally did the public survey, and I found it very, very thoughtful document, well questioned and nice range. So yeah, let's get in this and give them what they need to get some answers going. Thank you. Councillor Jagowitz, you go ahead.
Yes, through you, I do have a question. I'm looking at page 12 of the presentation. It's called call types and total review, but it does say example only. And I see there it has calls per station. Those are fictitious, I assume. Will we be getting, will the report include something like that? And the part I didn't hear in what you said is whether or not, based on that call information, whether there might be some recommendation for rationalization or anything like that. I didn't see that. Is that part of the study to see, or possibly you could comment on that?
Chief Morrell.
Yes, through you, Chair Zavitz, to the councillor. Yes, in fact, that is the second point of the study, is to look at the station locations and make an analysis of their locations and actually look at, we call it a station location rationalization. There's a mouthful for you. But what that is it looks at those call types, the call volume, the responses that occur today. It looks at where the members live and whether or not they're close by those stations, because believe it or not, that has a big impact on whether the station should remain in that place. And that information will come back to council.
Good, thank you.
So it won't be just, I see, based on everything within 5 kilometers of a station. It'll be, give us something as council whether we might want to consider some changes. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's correct.
Good, thank you. Councillor Edwards, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair Zavitz. I believe the chart showing from station 1 to 9 was just to show how it's done. It's not our counts. Going to page 120, and that one, I look at the stations. I see a station 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. I don't see a station 2 or an 8. And that, could you clarify for that what stations are which, so we do know? And secondly, I hope the consultant is taking into consideration the 5 kilometers within each fire station, because people's fire insurance, their household insurance will be going up dramatically, as we've found out in that before. So it's in that. And I noticed in some of your response times on some of the stuff that's coming to planning, you're saying, well, it's 6 minutes to get to the station and it's 9 minutes to get there. So now it's 15 minutes rather than what they're showing here with 10 minutes response time. And I hope they take that into consideration. It's a volunteer fire department, and maybe we're not just leaving from the station. And that's so that because that could have a major effect on our fire stations. Thank you.
Chief, can you speak to that?
Yeah, through you, Chair Zavitz, just to be succinct for the councillor, his 3 questions. The first one, the numbering and the naming of the stations is a historical piece. And trust me when I say I'm 3 years in and I still struggle with it. I prefer to call them by their names. But when historically, when the fire department was set up, it was set up by somebody who had a lot of military experience. So some of the stations actually have what we call double numbering. So we have a station 1, then we have a station 1-1. So really that would be your station 2. So instead of overnight making radical changes, because the team would really, it would be a little bit radical. Plus we have to go rename all the radios. It's a little bit of work. We are looking at that as a part of a recommendation in this master fire plan to make an easier numbering arrangement. So you make a really good point, Councillor Edwards, and I will be here to guide you through it because it took me time too. But it's a really quick way to get to know all the little communities here, is to get to know the actual station names of each of the stations. So hopefully that answers that question. The second question that you asked about the 8 kilometers and the 5 kilometers, there is a component where the consultants will evaluate what is required by insurance today. Interestingly, we have found some information that a lot of residents today use different insurance companies, and some insurance companies look at the 8-kilometer rule and some do not. So I know that the consultants will speak to that, and we invite conversation when we get to that piece. And then concerning your question around the time that it takes for us to respond, yeah, we do track that on a regular basis. It's something that I've been interested in doing since getting here, because I like to be able to tell people the reason why they should have a working smoke alarm, about the amount of time that it takes for us to get to their property, and that it's really hard to hold your breath for 9 minutes. So we want you to make sure that you get out of the building. So take that free smoke alarm. So although that's lighthearted, but it is something that hopefully resonates with people. We do have a volunteer workforce, and it does take time. We call that assembly time, for them to go to the station, and then departing from the station and responding to the call is what we call your travel time. And that total time commitment from when the call is received at 911 to when we are paged, to when they assemble, to how they travel, to when they actually do something at the fireground, is the total response time. And I know that the consultants will take you through that. And again, I am here for you to ask questions of, and I'm always interested in these kind of questions. This is something that highly interests me.
And that's supplemental. When they do the master fire plan, they just don't take 1 year and say this is it. They will take the whole history, because as you are probably well aware, fires can happen anywhere, and you just can't say we had one station if all the fires were there. So I hope they're looking at our whole history. Thank you.
Good. I see a nodding of heads there. So thank you, Chief Morrell. Okay, seeing no other hands up, no other comments. Thank you for your presentation. You have another one in just a moment. I'll just read this resolution moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that staff report ES-2022-003 Fire Master Plan update be received for information purposes only. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Chief Morrell. Okay, you have the floor as it relates to item 7E, a report from yourself on the municipal forest fire management agreement. That was quite a presentation you just gave us to read. Thank you for that. Go ahead, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, through you, Chair Zavitz, to council. The report in front of you highlights an overview of the municipal forest fire management agreement between the Township of Muskoka Lakes and the province of Ontario. And there are recommended changes that staff is making to council prior to a renewal of any agreement. We wanted to ensure that council had a fulsome understanding of the current agreement in place today and its meanings. Just some brief history for council. Under Section 21(1) of the Forest Fire Prevention Act, every municipality is responsible for the suppression of grass, brush, and forest fires within its limits. Section 19 of the Forest Fire Prevention Act allows for the province through the MNRF to enter into municipal forest fire management agreements. That is what is in front of council. They do this between municipalities and the province. So inside the agreement, it includes suppression, which is putting out the fire, planning, so good planning on looking at the kind of fuel conditions or the vegetation in your community, prevention, how we prevent fires from happening and how we work within our rules and enforcement, and training of our members so that they can effectively respond to a forest fire. These agreements ensure an overall least cost situation. They give protection services on specific lands. Without getting into the bulk of the report, the responsibility and the context, I'm hopeful, or I hope that most of council has had a chance to evaluate the report as it stands. Some highlights in the report I will mention is currently the agreement we have with the MNRF has us paying $7,116. As the MNRF has not reviewed or amended the agreement since 2012, what has happened every year is that amount has gone up by CPI. And it's basically just an arrangement between the fire chief and the MNRF to maintain the agreement. But that's why the agreement is in front of you today. We are asking council to consider the large geographical area of the township, the potential of occurrence and severity of wildland fire risk, increase in the property values. Property values in the township are increasing and the department's capabilities, including an aging workforce, as being a consideration to look at the agreement in a much more fulsome review of the agreement. When we did an analysis with the MNRF, we quickly determined how far away our hose lines would reach from the center line of the roadway, which is typically how you set the agreements between the municipality and the MNRF and other communities. In other communities that I have worked, in other communities I've worked with, that's how we've done it. And here, when we did that, that's how we arrived at the first version of an agreement that was placed in front of us. In front of council right now is the recommendation to actually increase the amount of money that we pay the MNRF from $7,000 to $34,000. And a part of that will be that the MNRF assumes more responsibility for forest fire protection within our lands, especially in those remote areas that we would have a hard time to get to, or we would have a hard time to respond to and then maintain on that wildfire while we still had our other fire protection commitments to meet. What I'll do right now is I'll stand for questions from council, because I assume that most of council has had a chance to review this plan.
Excellent report. Thank you. And Councilor Nishikawa, go ahead.
Thank you. I think I'm concerned that of them showing up. Like, while we're going to be basically increasing our taxes to pay for this additional bit, are we forcing their hand? And therefore, if we don't get approval of this, where do we go from there? Like, from their end, I'm talking. Because I would suggest that we wouldn't be approving this, the additional cost, unless we had approval from them. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you. Good question. Thank you, Chief Morrell.
Through you, Chair Zavitz, to the councillor. Yes, in fact, this analysis wasn't just done on our side, it was done with the MNR. So that's how we arrived at the agreement that you see in front of you. And they think that the agreement in front of you is reasonable and rational. And it's actually something that they're being presented with by fire chiefs all over the region. I will note that Gravenhurst went through this review about 5 years ago, and they did assign quite a bit more land back to the MNRF. And that's why, as council may recall, last summer, you saw the MNRF working that fire that was right adjacent to Highway 11.
Okay, good. So effectively, it's a service quote. So it's all within the confines. And again, I found the report very, very interesting, and I'm glad you didn't come to the budget committee with a request for a couple of water bombers. So thanks for this. I'm seeing no other hands. I do have a motion here. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Edwards. It is recommended the committee approve the draft bylaw authorizing the Township of Muskoka Lakes to enter into a revised municipal forest fire management agreement with the province of Ontario as described in report number ES 2022-001, and further that the draft bylaw be forwarded to council for ratification. All those in favor? Good, carry unanimously. Thank you, and thank you, Chief. I think that ends your involvement today. You're welcome to stick around. Thank you, sir. Take care. Item 8A, Economic Development and Grants. We have a report from Corey Moore, our Economic Development Specialist regarding regional broadband and that strategy. So thank you. Corey, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Yes, today's report provides an overview of the regional broadband strategy. Committee will recall the Muskoka Economic Recovery Task Force has been working on this strategy since late summer. The District of Muskoka brought the completed consultant report to their Finance and Corporate Services Committee in December. They provided the consultant's report to that committee just as an informational piece to give them time to review it more in depth. It is a lengthy document itself, at which time the district's plan is to develop an action plan And district staff will be bringing that back to their committee in March. In the meantime, township staff brought the strategy to our Grants and Economic Development Committee meeting in January for review and comment. We had a good discussion at that time, and overall general support from the committee on the consultant's report. But the committee did highlight a few areas that they'd like there to be a little bit more focus on. And they recommended that council provide some of those recommendations to the district ahead of them drafting their action plan, or at least for them to consider as part of their drafting of the action plan. Just to highlight the 5 kind of areas that our ACDev committee highlighted that they wanted to focus on. And particularly, I think the main focus was on just increasing the timeline of some of these initiatives, trying to get some of these projects completed sooner rather than later, given the need of broadband expansion across the Muskoka region. The first one was definitely making sure as a municipality we have the correct policies and agreements in place to handle broadband infrastructure requests and to support local ISPs. The second one was to develop a committee to help guide the action plan once it's approved. The third one was to begin to explore public-private partnerships as soon as possible. And the fourth one, was to create a broadband levy that could be used to help provide subsidy programs, help encourage the expansion of broadband infrastructure, or subsidy programs to residents themselves to help with affordability. Certainly some options there moving forward. And the last point was that focus be given to rural underserved areas. The consultant's report identified gaps across Muskoka, and they definitely, the committee just recommended that focus in future programs and projects, focus on those areas first. So with that, we have drafted a resolution. It's attached as Appendix 2 to this report and included for consideration, if recommended by committee today, for council this afternoon. The reason for this increase in timeliness is just to coincide with the district's work in drafting an action plan to come back forward to their committee in March. So with that, Chair, I will turn it over to committee for any questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your work on that. And some of our other council or committee members here today that we'll be reflecting on this afternoon. So thank you for that committee. I see no hands. Oh, there you go. Councillor Jaglowitz, and then Councillor Hayes. Go ahead, Councillor Jaglowitz. Oh, and then Councillor Bridgman.
Actually, Councillor Chair, I would prefer Councillor Bridgman went ahead of me. I think her and my subjects may be similar, so I'll let her go ahead.
Fair enough. Now, Councillor Hayes was ahead of her, so
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, Councillor Hayes, would you like to go ahead?
Barb can go. Barb can go first.
Okay, great. Thank you, Barb. Barb Bridgman, Councillor Bridgman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Slow on the uptake in terms of my hand going up. So thank you. And yes, this with Councillor Mazam, we brought this forward. I have followed broadband since I was elected, actually, and this was a really, really good report. So as Corey said, we're in support of this report, but the concern is midterm getting some of these things going, which I'm not sure what that means in terms of timetables for the district. So we just want to help them along with saying some of this needs to be immediately looked at. And just to highlight number 3, the public-private partnerships. Those are the only things that have worked in rural Ontario to date. There's one in Southern Ontario run by Swift, And there's another one, Eorn in Eastern Ontario, where there's private partnerships, where the basic model is that the townships or municipalities pay for the infrastructure, and the IPSs actually do the installation and run the program. But it's the only place that there's been any inroad made into the kind of rural areas that we actually have here in our township. So that, I think, needs to be looked at immediately if we want to have this in place in the near future. Part 4 was the creation of a special service area tax levy, which is recommended in the report. But to have that billed directly to the impacted lower tier and associated programs to support our residents. So the reasoning behind that is that if we have that money, we're going to be billed for it from the district. It's going to go into a pot for the Township of Muskoka Lakes, and it is going to be reallocated back to our township for the development of the internet. So those funds aren't used in other areas to support other internet, as in the towns or Lake of Bays or whatever. And so that, I think, is really important. There's 2 other parts to this that I now think are important that haven't been included. And one is, I think we need to make sure that somewhere in this action plan, there is an agreement that if a lower tier wants to go on their own to look at broadband and do our own plan with broadband, we are allowed to go out of the district plan, and we can take our money with us if a tax levy has already started. So just, I don't want to take up too much time, Chair Zavitz, but just as an aside, I spoke with Director Pink yesterday. We're going to have Perry Sound West, and that's running the Perry Sound and Seguin broadband initiative, where they're doing lots of things already up there, come to speak to our planning committee, because I think it's imperative that we all understand the whole background of broadband and what is possible and what isn't possible. And if the district, I really hope the district's plan is terrific, but if we don't like it, let's simply keep all of our options open. And that's really what we want to do with this. So thank you, Chair Zavitz, for indulging me, and I'll be quiet now.
Well, thank you for your commitment, and certainly I know I sleep better at night knowing you're on it forensically working away to a better end. So we'll hear more this afternoon, I'm sure. I know, and so Councillor Jaglowitz, then Councillor Hayes, then Councillor Mazan, and we'll wrap this up.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the township representative on the committee at the district that's going to be considering this resolution. And I support everything in it. I have some concerns about the second last paragraph 4. And maybe I'll just explain to you what my concerns are. First of all, and you can correct me if I misspeak, Councillor Bridgman, but the actual report suggests a tax levy. It does not suggest a special service area levy. And I believe it's referring to something that they've introduced in Caledon, and it was a $300,000 levy, about $11 per household. And I have a lot of concerns about using the term special service area levy in this regard, because at the district, as you know, there are many programs that we do not get a lot of benefit from, but what we have to contribute fully to, and you know what they are. I don't need to name them. And it just seems to me that this is one program. If the district's going to get involved, it's obvious that the townships would have more benefit from it than from the towns, but it's one of these things that everybody should pay for. And I just have trouble with that. So with that regard, and I just want to be clear that the direction I received from this committee when I met that committee, I would prefer if there'd be a friendly amendment to this. And if in paragraph 4, we say the creation of, and then delete the words until we hit subsidy. So it would be the creation of a subsidy subsidy programs to support residents, et cetera, and leave out the reference to a special Sorry. Did I misspeak or something? Anyway.
Oh, the township offices are frozen right now. So anybody there, they've all been kicked off, hence the reason. We'll see if we can get them back on. Looks like we're getting them back on now, but just bear with them.
Should I wait until they're back on?
Yeah, the recording stopped. We have to wait for the recording to come back, and we wait for our clerk or Chair Zavitz to give us the go ahead.
Isn't this topical that this is happening during a broadband discussion?
Well, a constituent asked me, maybe a staff can answer. The township have fiber?
No.
Do they not? They don't. Okay.
There is fiber in the township, but the Township Muskoka Lakes does not.
Okay. That's appalling, isn't it?
Sorry, we're completely, okay, we just lost you all. And for what it's worth, I wonder if we might, sorry, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. We just had a briefest of chats about this, but we are going to be having a fulsome discussion as it relates to a motion coming forward this afternoon, as you can see on your agenda piece for this afternoon. And I'm wondering if we might allay this discussion to that point in time. I'm hoping that in the interest of time, it's 20 after 12 and we're getting down to it. I wonder if committee would be amenable to that. I'm just kind of looking for any kind of movement. No, I'm saying Councillor Hayes saying, no, okay, good. Let's.
Could I just
go ahead then? No, you have the floor, sir. You go ahead.
No, I just want to I was almost at the end. All I was suggesting a friendly amendment that would omit the words that refer to a special service area tax levy, so that paragraph would either be deleted in total or be read that the creation of subsidy programs to support, etc. Just so that I have a problem if this council is asking for a special service area tax levy, that means we're going to have to pay for the full implementation of internet in our area on our own, even if the district does it. And I don't think that's fair. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And duly noted, clerk has duly noted your commentary. Councillor Hayes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I do not agree with a district levy. I am paying for my internet. I realize that there are areas that are underserviced. Apparently, I'm one of them, although I am on Zoom today talking with you. I really don't feel that a district levy is something that would be put to good use for our township. And I don't agree with the district coordinator. I believe that we've been doing a good job getting movement on this. And I'm really not comfortable with this going directly to council this afternoon. There was an 80-page document. I did read through it. I do have concerns with it. And I could not support it at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Harding, Councillor Mazan, and then Councillor Bridgman again. Mayor Harding.
Thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to comment as chair this afternoon. I won't have the ability to comment in the same fashion specifically. To Councillor Jagwood's comments about the creation of a service area, special service area levy, I think we are exposing ourselves if the district does put in place this particular levy. We are only 16%, one of 6 lower tier municipalities. All 6 municipalities have rural areas, and so 84% chance that it will not be us to get that rural broadband. Those are odds that I don't want to play. And if we go down a special service area tax levy and we start to implement at the district an opportunity to, and areas have special services, I'd rather pay what I get for. We can think of other areas at the district. I'd rather get what I pay for, and it may open up the ability for us to do that because we've proven in this particular case, small, that it's a method that does work and allow us to, again, to get off an overall district levy. So I think there's no loss. I am not prepared to gamble with, again, 84% of rural Muskoka being outside of the Township Muskoka Lakes. going forward. So if we're going to ever consider a levy, this needs to be there. I think the other thing to Councillor Bridgman's comment, the reality is we can always go our own way. There's nothing in any resolution that has been put forward that says we have to be in lockstep, that we can't go and do our own thing with our own providers at any given time. You know, this goes forward as far as deferring this decision from Councillor Hayes' perspective. Again, I have no issues in deferring this either to take some time. I don't believe there's a huge sense of urgency. We did announce, I think it was Cogeco has put lots of money in to get us 1 gig speeds in certain areas of Port Carling and Bala. And the province is also working on turning on all of rural Canada. So we're steps in the right direction. And I'd rather be a little bit reactive, I think, figuring out where people go and where we can plug the holes. But I would not want a creation of a special levy that was not billed directly to us, because I believe, will lose more than we will win.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mazan, then Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Zavitz. Just two quick comments. First of all, maybe for Mr. Moore, in your discussions on this broadband committee, do you think having this kind of a resolution would be a helpful tool for you in your conversations and discussions as a member of that district committee? Does this start to bring forward the things that are important to us as the Township of Muskoka Lakes, recognizing that we are one of the larger contributors and one of the largest underserved areas?
Corey?
That's my first question.
Good.
Yes, to the councillor's question, I think the district and the MRTIF committee would definitely be appreciative of council's comments on the strategy itself. A lot has gone into it at this point, and in developing the action plan, there's lots to consider. There was lots of recommendations in that report. So I think the feedback is important, and I think it would be very much appreciated. I guess the one point of clarity I just wanted to make around the levy, the report itself stated the consideration of a levy. So I think the one clear difference in this recommendation is that the recommendation or the action plan include the creation of a levy. I think that was the one kind of main difference, but it would be, I guess, up to see the finer details of that action plan once it comes forward, to see the further wording there. So,
okay, thank you. Councillor Mazan, is there a secondary?
Yeah, and it's a bit separate from the line of question we've had thus far, but coming out of this, the report and through discussions with some of the other municipalities around us, I think there are some best practices, like small things that we could be doing as a municipality that I think we should be exploring. One of them is the idea of every time we put in a new road, a township road, point number 2 talks about, or number 1 talks about micro trenching. I don't know if this is the actual term. I've heard the conduits can be put in at a fairly cost-effective way under new roads. And we just talked about is fiber coming to the township office. We certainly know that, yes, fiber goes to certain areas. But, you know, without getting into those details today, would ask that perhaps staff could come back at a future point with that as an option for us as a township to be considering. It's outside of what the district is doing, but it would allow us to set the policies in place today that we think are important for our township. So, and what that conduit means, it actually means every time a road goes in, the piping gets put in, even if the fiber isn't put in. So I know there's other municipalities that are around us that are doing this already, and it seems like a fairly cost-effective option, but wanted to put that out as we were talking about this today.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully Director Becking has taken that under advisement. Councillor, I guess Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Jaglowitz, and I'll wrap this up.
Yes, just to the chair. Caledon brought the levy in. Okay, they're a lower tier municipality. It wasn't the region brought it in, but I would not support a district levy at this time. But Caledon brought it in on their own, so it wasn't a regional, which would be our district council. Just so everyone's clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes, just another point of clarification. A levy is a tax levy is imposed on assessment. It can't be billed directly to a lower tier. I just think the whole wording is confusing, and we should take time to think it through before we tell the district something we really don't understand. That's my point. So I'm sure when this comes to district this month, if it does, I don't know that it's coming yet. I haven't been told, but if it does, I can on behalf of council say we're not there yet. We haven't developed our position, but here's some of our thinking, but we're not there yet. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. And I would look to committee generally. Am I sensing that we would like to have a continued dialogue, more discussion on this, actually not put this resolution forward to council this afternoon? Or I'm seeing some nodding of heads. We would like to take some more time, talk about the levy, et cetera. Councilor Bridgman, certainly, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, well, as mover, and maybe Councillor Mazan can either yes or no. I agree. We can certainly delay this and let's get more information. I think what's really important for me is that we all start to really understand what's happening here, so we can make the best decisions for the township. So happy to delay this if that's what committee would like. And there's
Okay,
Mr. Hammond.
Okay. CEO Hammond, you have a comment? Oh, sorry. Our CEO has a comment. Thank you.
Thanks for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. So if I understand what I'm hearing from committee, you would like to defer a decision on this report, and you're requesting that Mr. Moore seek some additional information to bring back to committee with respect to the concept of the special levy. But there needs to be some clarity, and he can pose that to the joint committee and say the council's got some concerns and would need some further information. And I'm sure that Councillor Jagowitz can follow up with that at the district finance meeting as well. Is that fair, Mr. Chair?
So great job on that. Councillor Bridgman, would you like muted?
Just a quick comment, CEO Hammond. I'm not even sure that the district's there yet in terms of that. So I think once they get their draft action plan together, that would define what the levy would be, I would assume. So maybe to your point, pausing just for right now, let's do our investigations here and let's get some information from our neighbors, which we are going to do, and we can maybe do our own internal stuff now until there's the right time for the input.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Strong consensus amongst the group that this is so vital and so necessary. So thank you for that. With that, I will not read the motion. We'll defer the topic. I would imagine that affects our council this afternoon as well, but with the committee's indulgence, thank you for that. And we'll defer that topic. Great discussion. Thank you. Okay, so moving along to item 8B, minutes of the Grants and Economic Development Advisory Committee held November 24th, 21. Take those yep, I see that. Take those into the public record. Councillor Mazan, you go ahead.
Sorry, just for my own clarity, if Mr. Moore will be coming back with some further thoughts on the levy, is that also an appropriate time, especially if we have a member from the Smart Now coming to talk to us about broadband? Could we also include the discussion around the conduits in the road? I feel like this one's a fairly easy one, but I just thought it seems to be nicely packaged. I just didn't want it to be lost in the discussion.
Mr. Moore, is that part of your notes, sir? Corey's gone. Oh, there you are, sir. Is it?
Sorry, if the councillor may repeat the question.
Okay, Councillor Mazan, go ahead.
Okay, that was weird. Just wanted to be sure that if you are coming back with some thoughts on a levy and an approach that we may want to be taking as a township, if you could also consider coming back with some initial thinking on including the conduits and any new road that goes in. just as a starting place, or what's the approach that we could take? And what are some of our neighbors doing around it? And given that we are also having a delegation from Smart Now, I think it's called Smart Now, perhaps bundling this all together, it helps us as council to start seeing things as a fulsome package. So.
Okay, thank you. Corey?
Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair. Yeah, I can definitely include that information when we return back and kind of how those processes look moving forward. I think I can do that in consultation with working with the joint committee. So, and I apologize a little bit for my voice. I'm just gaining it back, so it tends to disappear a little bit.
It's working for us. Thank you. Get better. Okay, thank you. Given that, we'll be moving on then to item 8B. I'll accept the minutes of the November 24th Grants and Economic Development Advisory Committee into the public record. Thank you for that. Seeing no questions. Number 9, unfinished business. We have nothing on our agenda as it relates to number 9. Number 10, under the new business category, we have a number of things here. District Municipality of Muskoka updates. If you, so perhaps Councillor Jagowitz, if you'd indulge first and go ahead, and then I'll call the others accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's a good lead in because the Finance and Corporate Services Committee met on January the 19th, and that's actually when the broadband proposal came to us for information, which was not dealt with at that time. The next thing is what we dealt with was increasing wages for the chair, deputy chair, and councillors, and the committee agreed on a lower level of increase, the 45th percentile, but it does make a significant increases over the next 5 years, $6,000 for a councillor, deputy mayor up 14,000 over 5 years, and the mayor up, so the chair up. So they're trying to catch up with whatever they're trying to catch up with. Nextly, there was a committee of the whole meeting on February 4th where the final budget, or the budget, was approved, which is coming to council on Monday. And just for information, it does have a $3 million increase, or 3.8%, but they played a little trick in it, and they were contributing around $4 million a year into a debt reduction reserve. They reduced that contribution by $958,000, which is 1.2%. So their actual spending increase is 5%. And two of the items that's causing this, one is Fairburn is now coming online as of June 1st. The district's taking over the operation of Fairburn, and that put $173,000 into the operating budget and $300,000 into hiring staff, which is going to be paid out of a reserve fund to affect that transfer. In addition, just one other note: there's 2 categories in the district budget. One is community housing, $3.3 million. The other is affordable housing, $3.6 million. And affordable housing was increased by $1 million this year. And so the district is contributing $6.9 million to those 2 housing projects. Our share of that, of course, is $2.6 million. Anyway, that's my report. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Big numbers. Councillor Edwards. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief because it's getting late. I'd like some lunch. But we had Nick McDonald do a presentation on Manette. And there was award of a contract for renovations at 49 Pine Street for the Good for Home Phase 2. And we got an additional $900,000 made available from the province. So that's why we went ahead with that. Just a minute here. And the total cost for that project was $1,170,000, $243. So it really helped us. And we just about talked a little bit about the budget, which is has gone on as being approved. And that was about it. Great, thank you. That's my report.
Okay, thank you for that report. Councilor Nishikawa and then the mayor.
Thank you, through you. You know, at this time, all of our committees are pretty intertwined in many ways. So as Frank had mentioned to you, the funding model with the Fairburn Nursing Home took up a lot of the health services discussions, as well as the Home for Good program and how that affects the health services end as well as the accessibility. I didn't mention that I also sit on the accessibility committee and I didn't report on that as well. The of course it's been in the media and everything about the staffing needs at the Pines and the needs for PSWs and also the contribution that the paramedics do throughout the community.
Looks like we lost the township again. We'll wait for them to log back in, guys. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll wait for Chair Zavitz. There he is. And
okay, we're
there she is.
I don't know where we go.
Looks like he's frozen again.
Lauren, wave if you're not frozen. Oh.
It's a great pose, though. So Phil, I'm wondering if the weather that's coming in is going to make the council meeting even worse. Actually,
well, my hope, I just messaged C.R. Hammond. I'm hoping that we're going to delay. We're going to start, first of all, probably 2 p.m. And I will ask council to be as succinct in our commentary as possible to try and get through. Thank you.
We just heard Mayor Harding. Can you hear us, Phil? Sorry, Mayor Harding, can you?
Yeah, we can.
You can hear us now?
No.
Okay. No?
No, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, okay, good. You can hear us now? Okay, let's, I guess we'll just keep at that. Councillor Nishikawa?
Well, mostly I just wanted to raise again, the importance of our paramedicine program that is somewhat expanding. But again, it's that human touch to help out other human beings. So again, I happen to sit on the health and safety aspect of things, and we discuss all sorts of areas that I think is better understood by reading the agenda minutes, quite frankly, at this time. Lots of money going out the door, though, right, Frank?
Only 37%. Oh, sorry. Only 37% of it is ours, though.
Okay. Is that your report, Councilor Nishikawa?
It is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Mayor Harding, go ahead.
I'll be brief. A lot of just general roads or some infrastructure stuff regarding sewer and water. Nothing of it related to Muskoka Lakes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, our representatives at the district for those comments. I'm at item 10C now. Are we good? Everybody can hear our last sort of piece of business. This is item 10C as it relates to a notice of motion. There were an incidental motion, a motion then moved. So what has been withdrawn, as you'll recall earlier this morning, was a motion to bring forward a council amendment to regulate, to promote responsible enjoyment and the use of parks, to restrict dogs because that has been withdrawn. Okay, so acknowledgement of that. And then I have in front of me one of two. I'll read this first, as our supplementary agenda had indicated. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Whereas section 3.5.1.3 of Township Council Procedural By-law 2019-079 provides that new motions placed on a supplementary agenda shall not be considered or voted upon until the next subsequent meeting, except with the consent of a 2/3 vote. Okay, 2/3 vote. Now therefore it be resolved, the committee hereby consents to the consideration and vote on a new motion with respect to the Torrance Ball Diamond as placed on the February 15, 2022 supplementary committee agenda. So we're seeking 2/3 support to allow us to read the final motion, the final resolution. So I would call the question. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, committee. I'll just read this very quickly. Okay, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that staff be directed to proceed with the creation of an alternate off-leash dog space south and east of the Torrance Baseball Diamond, with funds for the project to be taken from the existing parks and facilities capital funding envelope, and that upon completion of the new space, a draft bylaw be brought forward to prohibit dogs within the playing area of the Torrance Baseball Diamond. Before I call that question, I'll ask, let Councillor Nishikawa has a comment.
Thank you. Essentially, from a health and safety perspective, it is not recommended that humans, and particularly children, don't play in a dog park. If we want to have a dog park, and in fact, if the community wants the dog park to be the Torrance Ball Diamond, we would have to take the ability for the public to play there at that time. There's lots of regulations throughout the province and the health and safety issues, and in some cases, dogs are banned, or excuse me, children are banned in dog parks under 10 years of age. And you can see why. The size of dogs. Dog parks generally are permitting dogs to be off leash, but it does really restrict the public use of that facility for, and many will say, well, oh, I've never seen anybody, humans. Well, I can tell you that for the many years, myself and two other women in Torrance ran a children's league. We trained kids. We did. That's what, Susan, you noted that when we were talking about the volunteer component of how things function in a community. So, and also to note that it is our only municipal ball field. So if we want to create another new location for a ball field, that's something we can approach. But I think that this is the kinder, gentler way, as well as we are also looking for other locations, because there is municipal lands available, that we should be trying to find other locations for in other communities as well, so that this dog park can be. I have an understanding that many like to drive to this one because they don't like, for instance, the Gravenhurst Dog Park. But again, we have to be concerned about what our community needs are, and in fact, not losing services for our human use, but adding to what others would require for a different type of use. Thank you.
Good.
Frozen again.
This afternoon is going to be a fun meeting. I might think about trying to do it from home.
Has anyone done a study to figure out where the bottleneck is, where the fault is?
Well, they have regular conversations with their internet provider. So it's an ongoing issue, but we'll let them come back in. It looks like it's over right now. And maybe we'll try and get Councillor Zavitz, Chair Zavitz, to wrap up our meeting shortly.
I just need to add one more thing.
I see Councillor Nishikawa is frozen.
I'm not frozen.
Oh,
I'm just sitting
you're,
still.
oh, you're stinky. Sorry.
No, I'm sitting still. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to speak again.
Okay.
So, the one interesting thing is that we would
Okay.
not be saying that people cannot use the Torrance Ball Diamond with their dogs until the new facility is built.
People here.
I wonder, is there a vice chair for this committee that could step in?
So Ruth, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can, Chair Zavitz, and the
Okay,
vice
good,
chair
good.
doesn't work if we don't have a clerk.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so we're just, yeah, I guess we'll await that. That is for Councillor Jagwitz. We'll get
Okay.
this wrapped up in
Carry on.
just a couple. Okay, there's everyone again. Very good. Okay, we good? Can you hear us? Okay, so I've read, so Councillor Bridgman, go ahead. You have a question?
Just a quick question, sorry, Chair Zavitz. The replacement, is this going to be a big enough dog? Like, will it be the same size as what the ball diamond was? Because I'm guessing that's one of the draws of the ball diamond for the dog owners. So just a quick question on that.
Well, go ahead.
I had asked that a picture be, I'm not sure if Ken's on the call. I will tell you that Ken had, he had brought this discussion with me 2 years ago and wondered why it took so long to get here. So there's a number of property behind the ball diamond. To start measuring it out, I think it can be created very closely to what they have. But you're right, it's not exactly the same. But again, we're allowing the use for children and humans to use the ball diamond, because I've had reports back from the Hornets, for instance, which is a ball club that teaches young men, particularly young. I think there's more than young men in it. They wanted to use the facility, but will not use it if it's a dog park. And I've heard the same from the men's leagues. We have 2 men's teams, one out of Bala and one out of Torrance, that they're not comfortable using it as a dog park. So that's essentially, we're just trying to make everybody happy.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Good, thank you.
That's carried.
Thank you, committee. That's carried. I'm going to very rapidly read this. Okay, thank you for that long morning. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 12:52 p.m. And the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, March the 16th, 2022 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Thank you very much. So an announcement about this afternoon, council will be starting at 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
Okay,
If I
so-
may ask,
Sorry?
ask the clerk, is it possible to put up on the website or on a YouTube channel just that this meeting will reconvene at 2 p.m.? Because I think people do go to either the YouTube channel or our website to try and click in and be helpful to advise them. Thank you.
We'll put up a notice on the YouTube.
Thank you.